Ring?
Nope.
Yeah.
No.
I think their doorbell, or not the doorbell, their alarm. So I just installed one.
We have an Audible ad this
you do?
week. Yeah. Sorry.
On the show notes?
Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to add it to the show notes.
Oh yeah, you totally got that.
Okay.
So it gets in the rundown. Oh, I can hear myself. That's no bueno.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm on the mix now for some reason.
I like those pants, Ken. Nice and tight.
Test.
What else is done? No.
Testicles.
Still can't hear me?
Hello.
But now I can't hear you. I need to hear
I'm
you
right
two guys.
here. We
Well, I
don't
know,
have
but
that capability.
so first of all,
We don't
my
have that
hearing is
capability.
worse in my right ear than my left.
We don't have that capability.
Oh, fail.
Yeah. Hello? Is it me you're looking for? Yeah, I mean, if you can mix me out of, like, the right ear, I guess I could do that. I don't know if you have stereo. Oh, okay. That works. Well, I don't know if I'm getting any audio.
I mean, or you guys could just speak up. That's my problem, though.
Okay, I got it. We're problem solvers here. Jesus, you're bleeding?
We do need to record a pre-roll, too. Well, there's an ad. I don't know. We can do it after the show.
That's just weird.
You know, I have a Band-Aid in my bag if you want it. Okay.
Audible, you said?
Yep.
It's probably solid. No. Audible.
Yeah, AUDIBLE.
Yeah.
Are you super gluing your hand?
He's super gluing his hand.
I offered him a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is much more entertaining.
I also have new super glue.
Yeah, don't use the 6-year-old stuff. I don't know. All right, that's good. Good. Well, while they're working on that, if you want to do the pre-roll, we can knock that out.
You ready for me?
I'm always ready.
Be sure to mute the rest of us assholes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, this should have, the pre-roll should have beef roll over the whole thing, right? Yeah. Okay. Don't have to worry about looking at the camera. All right. Quiet on set. Quiet on set. 3, 2. Thanks to Audible. Shit. 3, 2. Thanks to Audible for supporting the PC Perspective podcast. Right now, for a limited time, you can get 3 months of Audible for just $6.95 a month. That's more than half off the regular price. Go to audible.com/PCPer or text PCPer to 500-500. That's all.
I like the welcome to Radio PC Per's Perspective for Audible. Only an Audible. There's Jeremy. Maury's not here yet, though. Or yeah, Maury. Josh apparently didn't want to talk to us.
Oh, what else is new?
Ooh, Jeremy, you're coming in really light. Audio-wise.
Any different?
Ooh, that's better. Gathering potatoes?
Potato?
Potatoes. We do get Maury.
Josh said Skype crashed.
Oh no.
Shocker, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, Josh appears.
Wrong glasses, Josh. It's kind of cold in here. I'm gonna grab my jacket.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't
Wow, I'm getting older by the minute.
The chat wants to know if we're running late tonight.
Uh,
We are running late
must be
every
new
night,
here.
to the point where, is it really late if it's the norm? Oh, is the site live?
it? Ooh, no, it's not.
No,
Whoops.
it's not.
Can you do that from your laptop, Ken?
He's on it.
He's on it.
Yeah, baby, he's on it.
Pertkerscher Nurch.
Oh, yeah. North Ranger in the chat, are you saying our audio's too hot?
No, he's saying we're too hot.
Well, that's a given.
Yeah.
I mean, look at us.
Do I have to?
No.
No,
Oh, I
it
hope
depends
you
on
don't.
zipping anyways.
Ba-da-da-da-da.
You know, though, while this new monitor is lovely,
Seriously.
it's still not the. I liked having more
That's-
screen space with 3.
We're going to do this dance again, aren't we?
Is it that much smaller?
No kidding, Josh. You lost a
Well, I
monitor.
guess, yeah.
I know. That's amazing, but you know, it's almost worth it. Almost.
Do you remember how to do all this crap, Ken?
Why is this
You gotta
so
go to the
hard?
YouTube and find the correct thing. I just go to youtube.com/PCPower and find the stream. Yeah,
Okay, claims it's live on the YouTube.
and then copy the ID out of that. Index.
Look at all these backups. Jeez. Version
So
control.
that like is a bad thing.
That is version control. What are you talking about?
Ah, it's not version control.
You're not version control. There's 2 places should be it.
That one and this one.
Mm-hmm.
Keep hitting.
Now what do I want? There was so many things going on, crazy wise. Sales. Bought a monitor. Guy bought a computer from me, so I ordered all the parts. Got a new phone.
Well, not yet.
Almost.
No, it's shipped today. Be here on
How
Friday.
far
when
are
I'm
we
not
fallen,
here.
Josh?
What's that?
Well, this is the issue.
How
we ran
far are
into
we
last
fallen?
week. It didn't
I know.
work.
A handful of years ago that neither of us had one nor wanted one.
I know.
One day I might install my first game on the damn thing.
Yeah.
I did install once the pig games, the Angry Birds, but that was it.
Okay.
My
It's like
boss
there's a cache,
likes
but
the Marvel one where you kit out your guys and they fight each other or some
Yeah.
shit like that.
Right one.
yeah. It's working on my laptop.
Yeah, not much for sales right now, which
It's always
sucks.
browser cache.
But isn't it still Cyber Monday week?
Nah, yeah, but they're all back up and well, except for Newegg, they have stuff all week.
It definitely seemed hotter when Josh joined.
What's that?
Sebastian's editing the notes.
Definitely seems hotter. Nice.
Like he put a pick in.
Okay.
So is Maury's not online yet?
I don't think we know who the third chair is.
I didn't get a response from Maury. Is Sebastian joining us?
I don't know.
He's supposed to.
Jim, are you running it or is Sebastian running it?
I'm the host, but that doesn't mean
He's the host with the most.
Okay, so your
The
pick should
hostess
be
with the
first.
mostest.
Oh, whatever.
Well, I mean, if Sebastian's on, we can bring him in.
I need a haircut.
Me too.
Need a real job?
All right, Jim. I guess we're gonna bring Sebastian.
Well, he's supposed to. Be.
I
I don't know what's going on. Okay.
Well,
Well,
we
whatever.
we can do up to 3 remotes.
Oh,
I think this is what it's going to have to be.
okay.
I don't know if we. I don't think.
Wow, look at that place. It's
Wow.
getting so nice looking.
I don't like this.
We're working
I
on
need
it.
to go back to prison.
Oh, wow. Yeah, jeez.
Let's see here.
He is in prison.
Warden really let you spruce up the cell this
They
week.
let him into the playroom for a bit.
Why can I not hear anything?
Alex, my audio is a little low. I can with the remote guys at least.
Oh, that's why.
Try it now as soon as they talk.
Talking.
No, you were fine. It's the rest of us.
Talking.
Josh, say something sexual.
Okay, I can hear stuff now.
But do you want to? Is the question.
Now
Is
that my
your audio
headphones are plugged
okay?
in. No, obviously
I hear him
not.
okay.
I mean, I hear them. They're very light.
Look at those cost pros.
Us Pro.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
Jim,
yeah.
you got this big
Porta
high
Pro.
impedance
Porta
headset.
They should be louder like you're listening on Shores. Those are more sensitive than what the shit I'm
Hey,
using.
penis headsets. Nice.
Oh, that's better. I heard
It's
all
nice
that.
how
a little
Sebastian's
firm,
window
I can
blends
open them
together with yours, Josh. It almost works.
Well, we can't have that happen. Here, we'll just break it. Oh, that's me.
Ah, so much better.
Those can't possibly be comfortable, are they?
These headphones?
Yeah.
There we go. We'll just put
You
them
know
up
what's
like
not
that.
comfortable? When you do
Greater
anything
Labs.
with the band
Yeah, it's
and it
covering his
pulls your
face.
hair.
Yeah.
Because there's like 2 layers of, well, it's hard to see. There's 2 layers of metal there.
Yeah.
What is happening?
That would be called Alex being a dick.
Yep.
I like the Diablo box. Is that a home?
No, it's
world?
only
What's that?
the
What's the
Guilty
word
Edition,
right there
Josh.
behind you?
Good lord, everybody talk at once.
Home world? No. The other side.
What, the...
No, not the
big
back of the
box?
box.
Home world. Or no, up one, right next to Underworld 2.
Homeworld.
No,
level, all the
that's
way on the left.
That's
That's-
not.
It's
The
an
same
older
stuff.
homeworld.
What is that one?
Next to Underworld 2.
Oh, the other side.
The other one.
Sneaky.
Your other left.
The one that says home something.
Your
No,
other-
Vander Keen.
Left.
Homestar Runner?
No.
Yeah.
I am gonna travel to Michigan.
More left.
You know,
Baldur's
You know,
Gate.
Now he's just
this
screwing
right
with you.
here is one of the prizes of my collection. The PC Gamer Disc 5.10, which was their classic games collection. It has 12 complete games. These are not demos. 12 complete games. If it'll focus.
Ooh,
Wink
XCOM.
and move.
Ultima Underworld.
Quest.
Stygian Abyss.
It's got
Secret of Monkey
Wing Commander,
Island.
It's got Duke Nukem 2. It's got Secret of Monkey Islands.
But most importantly, it has the Daikatana demo.
Oh boy.
It does.
Oh yeah, Sebastian. Oh yeah.
Okay, here we go.
The
Uh-oh.
best
see it.
of 3D action games.
4
It
dots.
includes Alien Beings, Alien Carnage, Blake Stone, Bopping, Boxing, Dark Forces, Descent, Doom 1.666, Hocus Pocus, Jazz Jackrabbit,
Ooh.
One Must Fall, Overkill, Raptor, Rise of the Triad,
Josh, tilt
and
that
Zone
up.
66.
You can see the porn in the reflection. You got to watch that.
Yeah, you gotta.
Oh yeah.
Oh god.
Oh!
No, you see all of those things here. Let me do it up.
Thief 2
That's
Metal
my
Age,
orange-
mate.
That's my orange background.
Josh, what is even? What
Apparently,
is that
Josh can't just open up Paint. He has to Google
It's like
orange.
Google image search the word orange.
Even? Oh, is
Yeah,
that
it makes it random.
Just don't do it in Bing.
You know, it's more of a stochastic
Doom.
type effect. Dude, don't even
Not
make
at
me
all.
pull out my
Hold
maximum
your
CDs.
fortune.
Where's that bingo card?
All right, here it goes. This one.
Can't
Boot.
read it.
A little
Boot.
closer.
Number 14. That's like from 1995.
Fallout.
Ooh.
Yeah, this had X-Car, Racing 3DFX, Star Colony, Fallout 1, Hot Metal Pro, Lords of the Realm Siege Pack, Outpost 2, Panzer General 2, Visual Page 1.
Ooh. That's what everyone needs.
That's
Visual
my
page.
oldest game demo CD that got sent with boot before it became Maximum PC.
Yep. I think I threw most of the rest out. Can't imagine why.
Not me. So what did you find out what that one was behind? The Homeworld something?
You
Come on,
get
dude.
off it,
Please.
Josh.
I just want to know what it is. Home
What?
World.
This is Gateway to Homeworld.
Okay, that's the one I wanted to know because there's Homeworld, but I didn't know Gateway to Homeworld was a different one.
Josh,
Just-
why don't,
it
why
was a
don't you
gateway
become a
game.
part of the action, okay?
I'm already part of the action. I
With
can't get out of
spectacular
the action.
animations.
And a hint book included.
Gotta have the hint book.
The shelves don't look like they're from IKEA.
They are, actually.
Really? Wow.
Everything I own is from IKEA.
Let's
Well,
look
yeah,
at those.
I
Let's look at those shelves again.
As far as I knew, that was true, but they don't really have that, Scandinavian design aesthetic.
They don't. They have the $15 aesthetic.
Hey, I mean, they don't seem to be bowing downward.
Not
They're
yet.
What's
not,
the
I mean,
code
under the
thing?
weight of
Is that-
these lightweight boxes.
Yeah, I was
but-
gonna say, like, they're big boxes. They're not fucking made of brick.
Well, I mean, there was
But
no
this,
S2
this
book.
was my solution temporarily to not sitting in front of a yellow
Oh,
wall.
I still see the stain though. Nope,
no
other
hiding
side.
that
It's
stain.
the other side.
What is it?
No,
Nope.
the other behind the
right.
iPhone.
Flip
The
around the other,
Dex drive.
spin around the
Behind
other
the
way.
Dex drive.
You need
So
a
what is the
taller.
Cobra? Is that a modem or something?
It's a sound card. That was my pick last week.
There you go.
That's
Nailed
better.
it.
That's good design.
16-bit.
Instead of wiping the wall, he has since put up shelving.
Hey,
And
there's
still
nothing
not
to
done.
wipe. I tried.
He moved
I've gotta
all of his
use
computer
primer
cases
and
upstairs to
paint
the
and
attic.
stuff.
Oh,
I don't have cases to protect me anymore.
Or provide R22 insulation to his basement.
Yeah, it's a little cold down here.
yeah. See,
It's
So what happens when-
15.8 degrees Celsius right now.
Set in freedom units.
you got rid of all those boxes full of case packing styrofoam.
Oh, they're just in the
they're
attic.
keeping
now.
the upstairs warm.
Are you running
Yeah.
Windows updates now?
No, let's just reboot it.
It says getting Windows ready.
So yes.
Well, it didn't tell me update
Yeah, if you
and
rebooted
reboot.
Windows 10, yes, you are running Windows
Yes.
Update.
Well,
that's true.
the computer's doing weird shit.
You seem
It's
to
going
always have issues with your laptops. I just want
Well,
to
it's
throw that
because
out
I
there.
only turn it on when I use it on the podcast. And I might have gone like 3 or 4 weeks not using it on the podcast.
All right, Alan.
Everybody ready?
We have 3
Yes.
remotes. There are 3 remotes.
3 remotes.
There
Let me
are
just-
For the
4.
TV, 1 for the stereo.
Mm-hmm.
No, like what was it? 2
Just
weeks
get a
ago?
Harmony.
We've got a broken one on the shelf over there.
Do we need to wait for this to finish, or are we
No.
good to go? Good to go?
It's
Okay.
never
let's
going to
go.
finish, Jim.
Everybody else ready?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? Here we go. 3, 2. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 523 being recorded on Wednesday, November 28th, 2018. I'm your host, Jim Tannis.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Alan Malventano.
And sitting in the peanut gallery, we've got
It's
Ken and
Ken or something. I don't know.
Alex.
I still love the tiki torches in the background.
You know?
Yeah, they're still sitting there from that party.
Yeah. Timing was bad on that.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
unfortunate. Well,
Yeah.
we hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. We missed you all last week. I've been gone for 2 weeks because I had a little issue involving vomit and a cat. Anyway,
Long story.
but I missed you guys, and it's good to be back. And we've got a great show for you. But quickly, let's just run down the details. We record this show live Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And you can join us at pcper.com/live if we could ever get the stream to work reliably. And of course, there you can also join us in our IRC to chat with us when we go live. And if you don't want to miss a show, you can join our mailing list, which we use only to let you know when we have live events. That's at pcper.com/subscribe. And we just send out a reminder a couple hours before we go live. To support us here, we still have the Patreon campaign going at patreon.com/pcper. And I've been transferred over, so I get the emails. So it's time to bring this back. The institution, or the tradition instituted by our former host and editor-in-chief, was that if you become a new patron during the show, during the live taping, or you increase your pledge, I'll get an email here, and whatever you put in the name field when you make that pledge, I will read out loud. And
Within reason.
You're going to be
I'm
sorry.
going to say no.
but
I'm
we'll
going
do
to
it.
say not within reason.
Not within reason?
Anything that will not get me arrested, I
Okay.
will read.
Okay.
So it's patreon.com/pcper, huh?
Yes.
Okay. I'll get right on that.
Thank you. Ken.
I hereby will all of my earthly possessions to Ken Addison.
You're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And of course, you can also check out our merchandise store at joshtech.com, where we've got T-shirts, mugs, posters, and you get a cool item there, and then we get a little cut to help us out. So
It's
check that
Josh
out.
Tech with 2 Ks.
Josh Tech with 2 Ks makes a
You know what the
great
best thing
gift.
is about the joshtech.com?
I have no earthly idea.
If you noticed it, the prices were the same on Cyber Monday. So essentially, you get Cyber Monday prices all year round.
Oh, shit. I should have
What?
thought
It's a
about
good
that.
way to
What a
think.
bargain.
I didn't even think about that.
Also, this is an opportunity to truly baffle a friend or relative who doesn't watch the show. Get them this mug or this poster and really bring some joy to their holiday season. But yeah, we'll just jump right into the show with that. We've got a bunch of stuff because of the week, the missing last week due to Thanksgiving. So we'll jump right in. We've got the AMD RX 590, which launched, seems like a while ago now, because I think it launched the day after the last podcast.
Yeah.
And Ken was
It's
gracious
always the
enough to
way.
review that for us. So tell us about this interesting little card.
So this was rumored for a while. The mythical, I guess it turned out to not be mythical, the 12 nanometer Polaris refresh. So we kind of saw this with AMD and their Ryzen CPUs earlier this year. They have the Ryzen 2000 series, which is the same basic CPU Zen architecture that they had on the initial Ryzen launch, but sort of ported to this new quote-unquote 12 nanometer process from GlobalFoundries, which is what they're calling their tweaked 14 nanometer process, which both the Ryzen CPUs and the Polaris GPUs were on. So this is an odd one. This new Polaris 30 GPU is technically the third time we've seen Polaris. We had the RX 480 and then the tweaked
Technically.
580, and now we have the 590. So 3 same but different pieces of silicon. Still have the same amount of GPU cores, frequencies see an increase, but texture units, ROPs, memory clock, memory interface, memory bandwidth, all stay the same. TDP does see a bit of an increase as the clocks are rated a bit higher, but it's from the outside looking in, it's just a higher clocked Polaris. How AMD got there by moving to a slightly revised process node is a whole other thing, but essentially what we're looking at is Polaris again, but at slightly higher clock speeds. So, I mean, I guess we can just start looking at some of the numbers.
All right.
Spoilers. It's, slightly faster than an RX 580. The more interesting comparison is between the 1066 gigabyte card, which the RX 580 generally lost to. It was faster than the 1063 gig card, but not the 1066 gig card, because those, despite the names, have different CUDA core counts, not just memory differences. So if we just kind of scroll through a couple of results here, in general, we see that in most tests, the RX 590 ends up beating or right at par with the GTX 1060 6 gigabyte card, and is about 10% faster than the RX 580 across just about every title we tested.
Yeah. 12% over the 1060 in
Yeah.
Wolfenstein.
So in some games, you actually see a pretty decent margin. Some it's a draw. I think.
What happened here?
Frame buffer.
Wow.
So the 3 gig frame buffer at the settings we were running at in Wolfenstein 2 just kind of completely obliterated the 1063 gig card.
Yeah, 1% down, 4% down.
Yeah, so there's ever some variance.
For a 1080 card, a 1080p based card, that you really don't want to go much above that. It does pretty well.
Yeah.
And again, you got 2 extra gigs of memory from the 6 gig 1060. And it seems to compete well. There's not much that is a negative to it, except of course maybe power consumption.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and skip to the power consumption page. It's, not great, we'll say. But it's not a whole lot different than an RX 580. So you can see, scroll up.
There's there.
Look at the power. Comparing the RX 580 to the RX 590, the RX 580 was essentially locked at 200 watts, where you see more of a drift above the 200 mark range with the 590 about. We'll call that 225-ish. I think that's pretty fair. About where it gets to. So you're seeing an extra 25 watts there. Interestingly enough, the rated TDPs between these two GPUs it's 185 for the RX 580, I believe, and 225 for the RX 590. So you would, in theory, expect a bigger gulf because we're comparing 2 factory overclock cards in here, but it's actually a lot closer than you might think. And similarly, you see, if you scroll down to the clock speeds, I think you see about 150 megahertz difference between the 2 cards that we tested. Scroll down one more. Yeah. So the RX 580, MSI RX 580 Gaming X was right about 1400 megahertz, whereas the XFX RX 590 Fat Boy was just under 1600. I'll say Fat Boy is my new favorite gaming GPU line.
Yeah.
So it's still it's for an average clocked RX 580 that is stock, it's about a 250 to 300 megahertz jump.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Overall. And how would you say, at least with the RX, the XFX one, did it get significantly hotter than the other, or?
It's been so long since I've written this review, I don't actually remember the exact details, but I think it stayed under 70 degrees Celsius, even in an overclock state. So definitely not getting hot. They've figured out coolers for these Polaris GPUs over the past couple of years we've had them. I mean, it's the same basic board layout and everything. So once you get one of these aftermarket cards, it's going to be a pretty tested design at this point. As we can see here with the sound measurement, it's quiet as well. Whereas the RX 580 card from MSI that we tested was actually pretty loud. This dual fan design from XFX was quite quiet. Here's the issue. MSRP for this RX 590 that we tested is, what's it, $289? I think if you scroll up, Jim.
Yeah,
$279. if you're comparing MSRPs to RX 580, that's just a kind of small increase. However, especially since it's been Black Friday, you can get an RX 580 for $180 for an 8 gig card. I saw 180, 190 of them going. And I mean, you're talking $100 difference for 10 to 15% performance. You should absolutely not buy this card. However, if it's price competitive with RX 580s, it makes sense to go ahead and get the slightly faster card.
Well, there is one other thing to think about here. If you get the RX 580, you get 2 free games. And
Sure.
if you get the RX 590, you get all 3 of the free games.
Yeah, but for the price difference,
So they've got the pack.
you could buy the last game.
Yeah, well, but still, it's
you
it's
are
another-
getting a
it's
slightly
another
faster
point.
card with the 590. Yeah, I think the games are the Resident Evil 2 remake, the Division 2, and I always forget the last one.
We got a story on that at some point here.
Yeah,
It's the fighting game.
yeah, that I can't remember.
Devil May Cry.
Oh yeah, it's Devil May Cry
5?
5, which isn't really a fighting game, but yeah,
Oh, what is it?
It's like a-
I've never
like a-
played any of them.
I don't know. It's like a
The platform.
kind of like a first-person brawler, like action game almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're fighting, but you're not.
It's a
fighting,
very
you're not
stylized
fighting. Like
fighting.
a single
Yeah.
player in like a Mortal Kombat or Killer Instinct style. Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
okay.
So the 590 Fat Boy.
Yeah. So the 590 isn't really an exciting launch. It's nice to see a little extra performance bump for AMD to beat the GTX 1060 6 gig. They have new sort of mid-range card. They're kind of revitalizing this mid-range tier that everyone has seemingly ignored. NVIDIA hasn't had a mid-range release in quite a while. I think even the supposed RX 2060 is still going to come in substantially higher than this, as we've seen with the entire RTX lineup. So it's nice to have a new performance king for the 1080p range, but as there's still RX 580s in the channel, the pricing just isn't going to get there. I think once the RX 580s kind of leave the channel, probably after this holiday, and they sell through, we'll start to see some sales on the 590, and it will be a more compelling card. But right now, just buy the cheaper one, right? If you can get a 580 for a pretty good deal, go with that. If you can see a 590 on sale and it's, I'd say maybe up to a $50 price difference, you get that extra free game, then maybe you go with that. But this is all, the mid-range GPUs are always an area where we see pricing is very sale dependent, and a $50 swing
and then
in this
it's really compressed. It's a compressed area with a lot of cards.
a $40 to $50 swing in the mid-range GPU arena just kind of changes everything, changes the whole performance to price ratio.
They're pointing out in the chat too. There's some issue apparently with this card in Linux.
Oh, I hadn't seen that.
Level 1's done some
I
stuff.
just heard
Linux
it now.
got some stuff.
There's a follow up on that as well from the chat. Apparently, it's not in the current drivers, but it's missing a BIOS device. ID.
Yeah, it's probably a new device ID.
Okay, so relatively easily fixable.
I'm sure
It
it'll be
should be.
fixed with a new driver, but
All right.
Yeah.
So is the power
think-
consumption of this card more a sign of just the immaturity of this 12 nanometer processor, or is this really just kind of like 12 in name only? You would not expect a card that is essentially just an overclocked 580, since every other element of the core is the same, would be drawing 40 to 50 watts more power at a lower process node. You'd think the efficiencies would keep it somewhere around 200 watts, but apparently that was not the case.
There's multiple thinking behind that. One is that it's not a lower process node, it's a more optimized process, and they've obviously optimized for greater transistor switching speed, and they probably did some other small things in terms of design to improve that so they can get the clock speeds up there, but they're not obviously hitting the thermal limits that the 14 nanometer older RX 580 did at that. And so it's interesting. I'd like to learn more, because in 6 to 8 months we'll probably have the Navi stuff, which is rumored at 7 nanometer, and we currently have a lot of that Polaris silicon at 14 nanometer. Why did they do 12 nanometer? I mean, what are they kind of getting out of it? And so I'm really curious at the thinking, because it's nice to get this mid-range jump
and a new product that truly is a new product. I mean, it's a different, it's going to require different masks. It's essentially a slightly tweaked and optimized process. Why did they do that? I mean, it's really kind of interesting looking at this decision because it's kind of a dead end. Really. I mean,
Well, it creates a new product, and you have a new look out there in the market, and they're kind of mitigating the increase in cost by throwing in an extra game, and obviously you would expect the stock of the 580s to fall off. I don't think they will. I think the 580s are going to stick around for a long time. I mean, the 570s you can get for $130.
I mean, do you still think they're making 14 nanometer Polaris silicon? Or do you just think there's a lot of it left?
Probably not. They're just probably going through inventory that they have left around.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, with a couple of good sales, I think it might get wiped out. Like, I mean, if you look at Pascal now, it's difficult to find one of those. And then didn't exactly see many sales.
But overall, do you like this card? Do you think? I mean, you gave it a silver award, right?
It's a good performer. It's just, if there weren't so many sales on RX 570s and 580s at the time, like with it being the holiday season, if there weren't all these sales, then it would be much more compelling.
Yeah.
But in the current price,
and it is generally a 1080p card, and you've only got so much room there because
you could start to do lower end 1440p stuff, 60 hertz with this card. I think
you're going to be limited there. I mean, if you want a good gaming card at 1080p, there's a ceiling to how much performance you need today.
Mm-hmm.
So is the 580 already well suited enough for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, if you do pick up a new GPU, you're going to need a power supply. Maybe not one this powerful, but we've got a power supply from Lee, a review from Lee. It's the EVGA Supernova 1000 watt G1 Plus. The G series power supplies from EVGA have been around for a while. This one is the Plus, the new Plus designation, and it's available in 650, 750, 850, and the 1000 that he reviewed. And the differences here are it's got a slightly smaller form factor. So I think he said it was 20 millimeters shorter. 20 millimeters shorter. So it's it's still an ATX power supply, but it's a little bit smaller. So you get some more flexibility there. And it's got a 135 millimeter fluid dynamic bearing fan, which he said, which the marketing materials say is up to 20% quieter, and he said was very quiet. So it's a good 1000 watt power supply. It's gold rated, so you're not getting that platinum or titanium certification, but you don't necessarily need it in something at this price point or for this use case, and so you're not paying for that certification either out of the box. He gave it very high marks. It's $190 MSRP, but Newegg's got it for $130, which much better deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
For a kilowatt, that's not a bad deal at all.
And that was in October, so that's not even Black Friday sales or anything.
Right. Yeah. That's just it's.
I wonder what it's at now. I will look.
Well, you can look that up. So it's fully modular. EVGA, it's a good brand for power supplies. I've got 3 or 4 of them running in my systems. Not the G Plus, but the older the G series. So they've all been great. The one thing he says though is it doesn't have a silent mode where not a lot of supplies these days will turn off the fan at low loads to make it silent, and this one doesn't do that. It'll slow the fan down. But it doesn't turn it off. And he says, on one hand, yeah, you'd like to see that. On the other hand, it's probably good to have air moving through there at all times anyway. So not a huge issue there. But that really was the only negative he could come up with. It got an editor's choice, which is our top award. Tight voltage regulation, good AC ripple and noise suppression, good high efficiency for its 80 plus gold certification. And it is quiet, even though it doesn't have that silent running mode where it shuts the fan off.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably spinning so slowly, it probably just it doesn't register any sound anyway.
Yep.
At low power.
10-year warranty. So check out. Do we got a price on that as of right now, Ken?
It's $100 on Amazon, $110 on Newegg.
Wow.
Not bad at all. It's a good brand. It's a good price. 1000 watts. So if you want the full details of all the testing and all the the voltage and the regulation numbers and all that, check out his review. He's got some detailed charts and graphs there for you. But we'll leave it at that. It's an editor's choice for the EVGA Supernova 1000 watt G1 Plus power supply. Make sure when you're shopping, you search for the Plus because they've got the G without the Plus as well. So, all right, even more reviews. We have a ton of reviews here. So next up is Sebastian, who reviewed for us the ECS. Is it pronounced Liva?
I think he's muted.
Leave me alone.
Oh, hello.
I am
Sebastian,
now unmuted.
come back.
I've always said Leva.
Leva. So okay, the
So,
Leva
I
Z2. It's a
don't know.
Gemini Lake fanless mini PC. Tell us about this.
Well, this is more of a what I discovered reviewing this is it's more of a productivity device. If you look at it, this has that kind of double Z height of I cannot remember the name of the. There's a slight differentiation with the Intel NUCs for the taller unit that can accept a 2.5-inch hard drive or SSD.
Mhm.
This basically has that form factor. So in addition to the eMMC onboard storage, you can also add your own SSD or hard drive. And it has dual HDMI outs. Interestingly, one is 1.4, one is 2.0. Supports high-resolution displays. But it's with the N5000, the Pentium Silver chip that's in this, it's really not powerful enough to do a whole lot in the way of like high-definition home theater once you get into the 4K realm.
Yeah.
So upgradability was good. It's competitively priced compared to the market for these sorts of devices. I thought the upgrade path was actually as painless as any of these little mini PCs. The feet come right off and they're captured feet, and then you pop in whatever other memory modules you want. It has 2 slots, takes DDR4, SODIMMs. I believe it can take up to 16 gigs if you really needed it to. This is passively cooled, of course. It's a silent PC. So my only issues basically came from doing higher and higher resolution and bitrate testing of video. If you look at the just productivity, like Geekbench, PC Mark 8 I ran, it's going to be slower than a mobile Core series part, obviously. Like the Leva Z Plus, which is a Core i5, but holds its own with the sort of contenders in the lower end. So performance was fine. eMMC storage performance was fine. Like it's not as painful as it used to be to run eMMC, but any SSD you have on hand is still going to be faster. But you do have the option of throwing it in there because you have that 2.5-inch slot. So temperatures were okay. I've never really had issue with any of these parts. This is like a 6-ish watt part with a scenario design power of under 5 watts. So you're not really going to have any temperature issues. The highest package temp I got at all was 88 under maximum load running benchmarks repeatedly, which worked out to under 62 degrees Celsius Delta. So that was fine. And actually, it's up on the screen right now. The eMMC, it's some of the faster eMMC that I've seen, sequential anyway, 235 megs with 112 writes. It's pretty fast for eMMC, but still, I mean, it doesn't bog down as much as eMMC used to, but it's acceptable. But again, even though the GPU in this can technically, according to Intel, and I ran the latest drivers, handle the HVAC in hardware, once I got up to higher bitrate 4K, it started to drop frames noticeably, and anything beyond that would not be watchable.
Did you test high bitrate H.264 video?
I cannot remember the highest bitrate H.264 that I tested. I was testing both until I got to, I don't know if it's up here or not. I think it was 10-bit 4K. Yeah, it was 10-bit 4K, 60, which is not necessarily reasonable. I think a lot of content is probably coming in at 30, and a lot of movies and stuff, of course, are probably at 24. But interesting. I would have to go back and look at the Kodi test files because I was downloading files from the Kodi Wiki site,
Mhm.
and I just kind of stopped at 10-bit 4K 60 when it started to drop frames.
Sure.
Felt like that was its ceiling, but
But then, so almost certainly this would be adequate for a home theater PC on a 1080p setup.
oh yeah, anything 1080p or below is very smooth, no drop frames, and like I said, I mean, you could throw a very large 2.5-inch hard drive in this thing if you really wanted to. Not that most people would need a lot of storage on a home system like this if they have like a NAS or something to actually host these files, but it's an interesting little device. The one thing about the Levas, and I've been reviewing these for 2 or 3 years now, is every iteration they add a little bit of performance. They stay at around the same price point. So as these actual platforms continue to mature, because these have all been based on whatever the Intel sort of Atom platform is, with the exception of those core-based units. But of course, I think a lot of interest in these small units, especially for high bitrate video or gaming, would be for an AMD solution, and something like this that's targeting 6 watts. It's obviously not like it would not be in this form factor, but I definitely hear the commenters who historically have looked at this and said, I wish it had an APU. But I think to actually hit the targets they were trying to hit and maintain a fanless PC, I don't know of any AMD solution to be able to do that right now. I know there are mobile parts out there that could be adopted, but I don't know if anything is going to be doing a lot better than this at SDP of like 4.8 watts.
Yeah. But so MSRP of $250 for this configuration?
Yeah, and that's with memory, obviously eMMC storage on board. That was 4 gigs of RAM, and it came with a Windows 10 license. So that was pre-installed. So you're getting a complete PC. This is not considered like a bare bone kit. As far as I can tell, this is like a ready-to-go PC out of the box. Although I could not find one listed for sale yet. This might be something that's still coming to the U.S. market. I'm not sure. It wasn't on Amazon or Newegg.
Ah, okay. So something to look out then for a good productivity machine and just anything but the highest end of home theater usage. All right. Next up, another review. We've got Alan is back with Drobo. Remember them?
I remember them.
I haven't heard from Drobo in a while.
I mean, they make stuff.
They do.
Generally, it's just a box, stick a bunch of discs in it, regardless of their capacities, and it tries to throw them all into an available storage pool of which you create a volume, and then, just kind of throw your files in there willy-nilly, however you like, and you kind of like set it and forget it. It's probably the closest thing to a set it and forget it array type of thing that exists. Where there's very few steps to get it up and running, and then once it is up and running, you can kind of stick it off in the corner and don't even necessarily need to monitor it. There is software you can install that monitors it and lets you know if a disk failed software wise, but it's not necessary. You can just go by the lights right on the front of the thing while it's running, and it gives you a red light if a drive's failed, and etc. That sort of thing. Pretty seamless technique, of which they have not changed one bit in the past 9 years.
Yeah, because I haven't had it. I had the first couple Drobos I had.
Yeah,
the old USB 2.0, original model, and it looks. This one's just wider, and of course the big upgrade is Thunderbolt 3.
Yes, so this one, they're when the marketing guys were talking to me, they were like, okay, look, this is like meant to be the successor to the Drobo Pro, even though there have been other 8-bay Drobos that have come out since. Drobo Pro was the first 8-bay model to come out. This one looks almost identical to it. I mean, it's a little bit more modern look to it, but other than that, it's basically the same form factor.
Where's the picture of the front? There it is.
Yep.
Okay.
They redesigned the front cover, but once you take that cover off, it looks exactly the same as the old Drobo Pro, which is 9 years old. No real need to change the formula either, is the thing, right? If it ain't broke, up to and including their whole technique of how they put the discs together. and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
But
Although we were talking about this when you were reviewing this, I mean, to a degree, yes, no need to change the formula. But
Right.
on the other hand, a lot of NAS devices, using now this is a DAS,
this is direct attached, yes.
but a lot of NASs, if you get them to 10 gigabit networking, they offer this sort of the Drobo magic, which is mix and match drive sizes. Like Synology has Synology Hybrid RAID, QNAP has something similar.
Yep.
So
They
maybe
do.
there is a reason to maybe try to improve that.
There's one, now I might be wrong here, but there's one failover thing that I really like that Drobo has always done, as far as I know.
Mhm.
And that is, since the storage is thinly provisioned, meaning it'll generally give you a volume size that defaults to something larger than what you could possibly have even installed in it. Usually, or just historically, that limit has always just been like the maximum that their file system can manage for that generation of Drobo.
Yeah.
Right. They've revised that over time. The Drobo Pro, the original one, and I think all the way back to your Drobo, your first Drobo,
Mhm.
the default volume size was 16 terabytes, which at the time, 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
16 terabytes, holy crap, right? Like you're never going to fill that thing up. Boy, were we.
Well, I couldn't
You know.
afford the drive. I don't think the drives existed to reach that capacity.
Right. You couldn't even install enough to do that
Yeah.
at the time, right? That has since, revised and over revisions all the way up to this particular revision. Now the maximum or just the default volume size, I believe, is 128 terabytes.
Mm-hmm.
And the maximum storage pool, because you can have multiple volumes on the pool of drives, max pool size is 256 terabytes.
Yeah.
I realize those are power of 2 terabytes, not power of 10. So it's actually an even higher number
Wow.
than as if you just had terabytes adding up, your hard drives adding up to 256 terabytes.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually go more than that hard drive space wise, like as far as how that math works,
Yeah.
right?
Of course, it causes like if we connected this to a Mac to test, because even though it works with PCs,
It doesn't work with
This
Oh,
one-
this one does not work with PCs. Okay.
This one does not
Nope.
work with
Some of their
PCs.
models work with PCs. So yeah, we were testing this on 2018 MacBook, and the one issue is volume size reported by the OS is always different from what you see in the Drobo Manager.
Yeah.
And that can get. I mean, like you're saying, you're ways away from hitting that limit, and
Right.
you'd have to upgrade the hard drive capacity anyway. But if you were theoretically at that point when 20 terabyte drives are out or whatever,
Right.
that could get a little sticky.
So circling back to what got me down that tangent was, since the volumes are provisioned separate from the storage pool, the metric for you knowing you've run out of space, because clearly if you just put a couple of hard drives in this and make a volume, it's going to be 128 terabytes.
Mhm.
You don't have that much storage in it, right? The way that you know you've run out of space is either by having the app installed and seeing how much space is left. I believe it even gives you warnings once you get up to like the 10% left and 5% left points, but it actually starts to slow down the writes.
Uh-huh.
It does it on purpose to the point where you can, it's like you can never get to the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Something's wrong here, buddy.
Yeah.
Hello?
You would start to understand, oh, wait, something's up here. Like, why are my writes so slow? And then you check on it and, oh, right. And there's actually blue LEDs along the right edge of the front of the Drobo that indicate the actual capacity filled of the pool.
Mhm.
Right. So you can just
The
glance
rare
over.
Xeno array.
Yeah. You can just, you just glance over at the thing and you see, oh, yeah, it's full. I need to do something. Right.
And because it's direct attached, it's going to be within eyesight of your computer, probably.
Yes, probably.
Not in a closet or something.
But due to the way that whole provisioning thing works, if you did have a drive failure and you were way over on how much installed space you had versus how much you were actually using, and remember that Drobo pays attention to what's actually on the partition. It looks inside the partition in the volume that's on it,
Mhm.
and it knows how much you have actually written to it, not just, I have a 128 terabyte partition, I need that much space worth of drives to do it, right? So if you have a drive fail, as long as there's enough remaining space to absorb that and still have an extra drive for redundancy, it'll just do it on its own.
Mhm.
Seamlessly in the background with no user interaction at all. And then once that's done and it's back to a green state, now with a failed drive sitting in it, but that drive's not being used anymore, you can even have another drive fail. Basically, you can have a cascade failure for as long as you have enough space to hold your stuff,
Nice.
right? Which is good for those that say you have a family member that you know is, it's like the check engine light thing with your significant other, whoever you may be. One person's the car person, the other person's the one that lets the check engine light stay on for like a month before they let the other guy know, right? And that sort of thing. Well, if you have a family member that's like that you want to just be able to set this thing, forget it, and then even if they don't pay attention, the stuff's probably safe.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's where they got popular early on with like photographers and stuff like that. People who needed a lot of storage but weren't otherwise technically savvy, where they weren't going to roll their own NAS or roll their own direct attached array.
Yes.
And that kind of really plays into that simple,
And it is fairly bulletproof and robust. It's the same, like these techniques have not changed. There's a set of batteries inside this thing. It has a, battery backup for its memory and whatnot. Like if power goes out in the middle of it trying to figure out that a hard drive just failed and you were writing some stuff to it, if all that's going on, which is the kind of things I tested on the original Drobo Pro. Like I was just being mean to that thing. I mean, I was like, okay, worst case scenario, let me pull a drive while there's a write going on. Oh, now I'm going to pull the power plug right in the middle of it trying to figure it out. Plug it back in. It might have taken it 5 minutes to figure out what the heck happened. But
what did Alan do now?
But it came right back and the data was still there, right?
Sure.
Granted, still treat it like it's a black box. You should have a backup on something else. Nothing is immune to failure. I believe the original Drobos got some flack from some photographers because the Drobo itself failed. And then they said, oh, my data is held hostage now because I have to buy another Drobo to get it back. Well, if you only had one copy on that thing, I'm sorry, that's just how that works, right? It's any NAS that happens. Any NAS.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only way...
Not any. I mean, there are
most of them.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing...
Any NAS that's using this sort of hybrid mix and match.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Or anything
if you know exactly what you're doing and have built one, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're doing, you just buy in a device. Well, yeah, they all do that.
Right. Yeah.
So easy to use and
easy to
robust,
use,
but how's performance?
Yeah, that's the thing. The previous ones, usually the performance is the minus. They have finally broken 1 gig per second throughput.
They need 8 hard drives to do it.
I mean, I think it'll break it with fewer. We didn't test it, but it should be reasonably fast. If it was able to do 1.1 gig per second, now granted that was reads. The write speed was around 400 meg per second.
450-ish.
Yeah, actually that chart's a good example of the complications of testing a Drobo, because they even made their own tool to try to make it easier on reviewers that insisted on running some sort of tool to benchmark this thing, because especially on Mac, if you use the Blackmagic disk speed test, it's just not giving you the numbers that it's actually going to do in reality.
Yeah.
Even their own tool, we just kind of ran it with defaults to see what it gave us, and it was closer to reality. But then, when Jim busted out a stopwatch and a 32 gigabyte test file and actually did copies to and from the Drobo, then you saw the speeds it actually goes at.
Much better action. And again, that was a sequential single large file copy.
Take a big file, dump it on the Drobo, and then reboot the system so it's not cached, and then take the same large file and read it back.
And that's probably what you want to use this for. You don't want to put some VMs on it and run, use it as your...
Yeah,
I mean, you would if it was fast.
Well, it's supposed to be able to handle...
But here in reality...
it's supposed to be able to handle random reasonably. I wouldn't trust it to handle random writes, at some insanely fast speed. However, there is that hot data cache drive, the accelerator bay, which is now a 2.5-inch SATA drive bay at the back. It used to be MSATA, like in a little door on the bottom. So now it's just it's like an SD card slot, but for a SATA hard drive, or a SATA SSD, right? You plug an SSD in there, it'll use it as a read-only sort of cache. It's a cache. It's hot data. It'll actually pay attention to the things that you're frequently randomly accessing on the hard disks, and it'll take an extra copy and it'll put it on that drive.
Sure.
Now, granted, this is only one SATA drive. It's not going to give you 1.1 gig per second. It's only going to give you 500 meg per second, but it could do something. It can do a few hundred meg per second worth of a random performance.
Yeah.
Which the hard disks are just not going to come anywhere near.
Sure.
Right? So it'll help you there. But again, anything that's written, it's not going to put it on that cache drive because there's only one drive there. What if that fails, right? It's not going to stick it there first. It's going to put it on the hard disks first.
Yeah.
It might put an extra copy on that SSD, but it has to put it on the hard disk. So that's going to be your limit on random writes. So if you have a VM on this and you're trying to install the OS in the VM, that's going to go slow. That sort of thing.
How about price?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Price is high. Now, I didn't look up the price of the original.
Wait, are you saying Drobo makes high-priced products?
Well, so here's the
Price
thing.
kind of slow.
Here's the thing, Josh.
Direct attached storage.
Here's the thing. Drobo has had direct attached storage devices like the 5C that you can buy for like $300. That's a 5-bay Drobo, $300. Compared to this, $1,300.
Yeah.
So you're
Without drives.
without drives. So if you want an accelerator bay, faster interface, and 3 extra hard drive bays, that's the price you have to pay from Drobo. It's kind of steep, but it is lower than like what the other 8-bay like enterprisey kind of models are, or well, launched at, which was $1,700.
How do you compare this to Synology? They're like one of the bigger ones as well.
Synology doesn't make direct attached storage devices. Synology makes NASs.
They make eSATA ones, yeah.
Well, nothing really has eSATA anymore.
I mean, yeah.
Oh,
So comparing this to Synology, Synology's way more flexible in the NAS form because you got all those different apps you can have on it. Now, granted, Drobo has apps too, but only on their network connected devices, of which this is not one. So it's not even really an equal comparison if you're trying to put it up against Synology. Synology really, as long as you're okay with it being network attached, Synology is just going to walk all over this, except for maybe some of the way that it handles its array, that Voodoo.
That they do.
Yeah.
is there any security on it whatsoever, or is it grab it, walk away, and plug it in somewhere else?
On this one?
Yeah.
Well, as long as the other thing there's something else you plug it into is a Mac with Thunderbolt.
You could probably enable full disk encryption on that volume.
If you do that, you will
I mean, it'd be
break.
software.
Actually, I don't think.
No, I think you'd break some serious stuff there.
You'd break its ability to know what files were stored
Yeah.
or what the capacity used was. Especially
They should have put the encryption key in the firmware.
especially when your full disk encryption thing tried to write 128 terabytes to a thing that only had
Yeah, fair point.
I don't understand the market for this.
Yeah.
It's an 8-bay direct attached storage device that only works with Macs, that is not fast enough for modern video editing.
I mean, you look
But
at
it comes with a Mac
So
price.
what do you do with it?
There's-
What are you putting on it?
It's
It's
archive.
the world's best time machine drive.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh God.
it's where you have this insane amount of media that you've processed. You just need to dump it on something. You dump it on this. It's a thing. It's a black box that can deal with hard drive failures gracefully. You know, that's
And
that's
looking at
about
the
it.
price too, you look at another product that's similar. It's a Mac focused company that does direct attached storage, is Promise, and they have the R series of multi-bay RAID enclosures. They don't have the magic of the mix and match your drives.
Yes, they have to be pretty much the same size drives.
Yeah, but there's Thunderbolt 3, and they're fast. I've got a 4-bay one there that was beating this in performance.
That was a Thunderbolt 2 device.
Now it was Thunderbolt 2 through to 3.
But it was still limited to the bandwidth of Thunderbolt 2.
Those are fast. I mean, heck, we used a 4-bay, one of those
A
same
first gen
style.
Yeah.
With for the what was it for the? Weren't we capturing
You're
directly
capturing-
to it with the frame rating stuff?
Yes, that was
And with 4 SATA 2 SSDs in it.
Yeah.
and
those 4 Corsair
and
SSDs.
but the price on those I don't know off the top of my head, but they're in this range. They're not cheap. They're diskless. You know, they do ship some that come pre-configured, but
yeah,
the ones I used to buy were diskless and very expensive. So not unreasonable in that context.
But they're at least fast.
Right. But they're fast.
Like you're paying more for the speed.
Yeah, but
Whereas this is just
you unless you're going to run a JBOD or figure some individual drive access, which they do let you do, which is also kind of handy.
Yeah.
If you want to RAID, you got to use the same drives, same drive sizes.
But like think about kind of the alternate use case in a world where Apple's actually shipping a lot of 10 gig NICs in their devices, right? You could get a 5 or 6 bay Synology with 10 gig capability in it for under $1,000.
Oh yeah, like
And it would walk all over this
that
thing.
that D1618 we just reviewed. That Synology, it's a 6 bay, I think, and
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it's
so.
$700.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come with a 10 gig. You got to buy the
Sure.
NIC, so it's an extra $150, but that's fully capable of doing that.
Well, like I want to like these products because I am a Mac user, and like I like the simplicity of the Beyond RAID stuff, and just like knowing it's kind of very redundant and it can survive drive failures and power outages and stuff. But like it's just too, even as someone who bought a stupid overpriced MacBook, it's just too expensive for what they're giving.
But to a person like you, I would just say, well, if you still want the Drobo stuff, 5C,
Sure.
$300.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Right? It did well. It did like, I think 350 meg per second reads and writes.
But at some point,
Yeah.
like just buy 2 5Cs, I guess, right?
Yeah, they'll half the price,
Like,
and you got
what's the
backup now.
disadvantage to that?
Yeah.
Is there one?
If to manage separate volumes.
That's
But like
Yeah.
you already
Yeah.
have to do that if you hit 128 terabytes on this 8 bay anyways, which would be fairly easy
I
with
think
modern
the-
drives.
I think the 5C's limit is 64 terabytes, although they might have firmware updated that and expanded it to 128. I'm not sure. Another thing to know, if you're getting one of these, you should probably just migrate. Like, don't take the disk pack out of the old one and put in this one, even though supposedly there's like a short list of prior Drobos that's supported on. The catch is the volume size remains whatever it was on the previous device.
Oh, and if you're going from a 5 to an 8, probably the drives are old enough to be aged out
That's
anyway.
the thing. Yeah, it's probably aged out. But if you wanted to reuse them, fine. But buy the larger drives that you're going to put in the new one. Hook it up at the same time as the old one. Copy all your stuff over with this larger volume on the new discs. And then if you want, decommission the old one. You can. There's an erase command you can set that actually make you type in erase. Like if you're trying to reset, they just call it resetting the Drobo, but it's like it really wipes everything. You could do that, and then once it starts rebooting, you just shut that old Drobo down. Those drives are now empty and not associated with the Drobo, and then you can pull them, stick them in the new one, and you can, like, if you wanted to add, I don't know why you'd want to add, 3 or 4 year old hard disks to your brand new, probably 2 or 3x the capacity, newer disks that's in your fancy new Drobo. But hey, if you wanted to.
I imagine a decent chunk of the cost of this device is putting 2 Thunderbolt 3 controllers in it because it can do daisy chaining.
Yes.
I just don't understand why it has Thunderbolt. Why doesn't it have a USB 3.1
It has
controller
two
instead?
Thunderbolt 3 40 gigabit controllers in it.
That only do 20 watt. It does power delivery of what, 20 watts?
15.
It was 15.
Which is worthless.
Yeah,
like,
that was
why is
disappointing.
this Thunderbolt, besides being easier to market towards Mac users? USB 3.1 Gen 2 would work literally just as well and probably cost less than 2 Thunderbolt controllers.
It's true. I don't know why there must have been some reason, but maybe they were worried about the internal power supply having to supply 8 fast hard disks, the SATA SSD, and how much more do we have left over with the margin? I just wish they would have beefed up that power supply a little bit and just maybe overcome that. Made it 30 watts would have been nicer.
If you're gonna, something like this
that.
though, it's a big box. It is heavy.
Yeah.
And it is, it's a giant size. We probably should have put something for scale in these photos, but if you could have that and say, well, this is my docking station for my MacBook, and I come home and I plug it in, and I can power it and maybe pass through my monitor
screen
and
goes
everything.
right through it, yeah.
That's one thing, but to not have that, to have, it's 15 watts, well, great. What good does that do? What Thunderbolt device are you going to plug into this that's going to benefit from 15 watts, other than maybe the MacBook Air?
So, in other words, it could have saved you from having to purchase a hub.
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
But it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't have the one cable solution, so the daisy chaining becomes even less valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Apple doesn't sell a Mac with only one Thunderbolt port on it.
Well, I mean, is there any Mac solution for having high density storage like this? A redundant high drive spindle count?
Those promise arrays.
Direct attached?
Yeah, direct or internal.
I mean, all of the same solutions as Windows, really. Right?
Yeah.
Which,
And so,
again, are few and far between.
And just to reiterate, not Windows compatible, but they say it's coming?
Well, they said it was coming with the last Drobo that was Thunderbolt enabled, which was the 5DT or something, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. It had Thunderbolt. You could plug it into a Windows PC and it would show up, but without a driver. And they kept promising that a driver was coming, and then it kind of never came with that one, so I really would need to see it before I believed it this time. Right?
Sure.
So
Fool me once, right?
So what's the deal with the driver here? Because I mean, it says it's for OS 10, 12 plus or something.
Yeah.
But there's not a standard for block devices over Thunderbolt.
It's not. It's actually enumerating the actual controller directly.
Yeah. So
I mean, it's PCI Express, so you need a driver for the PCI Express storage controller.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not like exporting LUNs. It's just a direct
it's direct
block.
Yes.
Okay. That's weird. So yeah, you need a custom driver and a proprietary driver stack to actually have it work at all.
Yes. Yeah. So under Windows, it would just show up as a device with question mark and device manager, and probably Drobo something or another, or Thunderbolt controller, or usually it's Thunderbolt controller you see, not even the things behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So you need whatever their special driver is to address that properly. And
anyways, should probably stop belaboring this point because we've got
I
a lot to talk about.
So it's the Drobo.
We're Droboing on a bit.
Yeah.
This is just a philosophical discussion.
It's the 8D. It's $1,300. If you need it, you need it. But there are other, perhaps better options out there.
Yep.
All right. So let's give Alan another chance to ramble here. We've got the Samsung 86 QVO.
860.
This won't be controversial at all either.
Yeah.
Not Evo. Is it QVO or QVO?
I've been calling it the Quivo.
Quivo. Good.
Yeah, Quivo?
No.
Wait, Josh says no? Josh is going to step in here?
It's deliciously awful.
Yeah.
I think they want the Q to stand for quality or something, but it really is
it's like quality value optimized, I think is the stupid
but
mark.
It's just the Q is for QLC.
So the Q is their thing now because, as you know, Q looks a lot like O in the store. So QLED TVs. Which
yes.
I talked to yet another person the other day who was like, "What's the difference anyway?" I'm like, "Really? One's LCD. What? It is?" I'm like, "That's a Q. It's not an O." Oh, I didn't realize that.
I've never. Sebastian
Samsung,
Peak. Mark the
besides,
time,
an
ladies
O
and
just looks
gentlemen.
like a
He's uncovered the great
diskless Q.
conspiracy.
Hey, you know what
And here
the
we go.
bad thing
Now
is
their
about
SSDs
Q
have a Q too.
Yeah.
is that in the medical field, a positive Q sign is this. That means you're dead. So you got the O there and the tongue out.
Gotcha.
Right.
That's the positive Q sign.
Maybe
so
that
these
didn't
drives
translate to Korea. I
already
guess.
come out of the box.
Okay. Anyway.
Josh,
Positive
for our audio only listeners, could you please recreate that facial expression?
No.
Okay.
All right.
In prose, how about in a haiku? Josh tongue is bad. It sticks outside his head.
That's what she said.
Dead.
I'm not gonna go with
That's what
that.
she said. There you
All
go.
right. So it's a 2.5-inch SATA drive.
2.5-inch SATA drives. They sent us a 1 terabyte and a 4 terabyte.
All right.
They are using QLC, not TLC, flash memory, with an SLC cache ahead of it. Now, if this sounds familiar, the Intel 660p and the Crucial P1 both do that as well, but they're doing it NVMe only.
Mm-hmm.
These are the first serial ATA QLC SSDs we're seeing. They do the same sort of intelligent turbo write thing that they did back on the Evo, where they try to give you some more above a static amount of SLC cache. There's a little bit of dynamic in there. Thing that caught my eye here was the QDepth1 random read performance. Even spec'd is only 7,500 IOPS. Now, this is something that's usually like 10K or up on anything else. Samsung's actually, I believe, the first company to ever spec at QD1, where you had everybody else was caught in that megapixel race of, oh, we want the highest possible Q depth and because we want the maximum IOPS and everything. But, as we've done lots of testing on, most of your desktop time is operating at, the SSD's operating at QDepth1.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 some of the time, but it's like 80% or higher QDepth1. So to see a low number there on reads, that's not good. Even if you're trying to use this as like a Steam game drive, that might actually be enough to get a noticeable performance hit trying to load games off of this thing. So just something to note. And then moving on,
Those are empty enclosures.
Yes, the trademark empty Samsung SSDs. I mean, even the 860
bag of
EVOs.
chips.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is notice how, if you look between that picture and the next one, there's only one flash package on the 1 terabyte model. Because there's one on the front, but there's none on the back. And then on the 4 terabyte model, there are 2 on the front and 2 on the back. So these packages, I mean, they're just a terabyte worth of this QLC.
Dense.
And I got to admit, that is just amazing.
Yeah.
2 years ago, those would be what? 512 tops?
Right. Something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, even as is, without stacking any more dies in a package, they could easily make an 8 terabyte, obviously, since there's one there with half of the die spots, blank, right? So here we go with this random read, which we weigh these results to make them simpler, so there's not just a bunch of numbers to look at. There's already enough numbers as it is. But there you go, a 1 terabyte model scored 7,200, 7,200, 7,300. 4 terabyte model scored around 7,900. This is on the reads, which is, again, weighed more towards the lower Q depths.
Yeah.
So those scores are pretty low. Even if you compare it against an 860 Evo.
Right. Like it's
double.
misleading because these are the M.2 and the NVMe drives down here, right?
But notice there's not really a lot of difference there in those scores.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like 860 Evo, an MX500, a P1, a 660p, 660p was a little bit higher, but like, those first 4 that I just rattled off there, they're all within just a couple of % of each other on the read performance.
Yeah.
Even though I just labeled, I just named 2 SATA drives and then 2 NVMe drives, right? QDepth 1 and 2 kind of performance, NVMe doesn't necessarily give you this big, huge advantage there because you're waiting on the flash. You're not really waiting on the interface at those low QDepths. And apparently when it comes to waiting on the flash for these QVO drives, things are taking like twice as long. I don't normally include this chart, but the next chart down is just looking at QDepth 1, 2, and 4 for that. The whole other group is pretty much in a tight cluster, kind of a tight band on that chart. And then there's just this, half-inch lower on the chart is the 2 QVO drives. At all, it's not. It doesn't even try to pass them at a different Q depth. There's not even it's like it's on track to do better later, maybe. No, it's just, everything is a step slower than all of the other competing drives. So yeah, I mean that's, don't expect these to be very responsive feeling, like that term that always gets thrown around for Optane things, where Optane increases the responsiveness. These are going to make your responsiveness feel less so compared to even other NAND-based SSDs. Sequential, not bad. It's kind of as expected. The 1 terabyte was a little bit on the low side, but wasn't horrible. Mixed burst test, actually not that bad either. Although this test was built around game level load type things, where the level load was more of a sequential workload than random. So that means that the low Q depth random thing I was talking about earlier doesn't really hit them that hard in that particular chart. And then the trim testing, yeah, nothing to write home about. Like, these drives don't really see any kind of impact from trim. There was the MX500 that was the one that was known to have kind of like a, wasn't doing great at the trim thing, but I don't know. I know they came out with another firmware. Somebody was talking about this in the comments in the article. I don't know if the firmware that they released since then addressed that issue, but I don't believe it did. Okay, so cache test. This got confusing. The 1 terabyte model had to work a little bit hard the first time we hit it with 60 seconds worth of writes. Now, this is actually the second time we hit it with 60 seconds worth of writes, because there's like a precondition that happens before this test even happens. And then we wait 10 minutes. We just let the drive sit there for 10 minutes. and then we hit it again with a write. And for some reason, that first pass, it went fast for around 6 gigabytes, which is the static cache size for the drive. But then it fell down to its 80 megabyte per second QLC speed. Now, for some reason, on every subsequent pass, of which there were 7 more of them, 1 minute apiece, it had no problem writing 25 gig, which is basically full speed writes for 60 seconds. Why it behaved that particular way, I'm not sure. Presumably there was, it kind of like woke up to the fact that, oh, wait, there's some stuff going on where I should maybe open up some of my QLC space and try to turn more of it into SLC so that I can have a bigger dynamic cache. Maybe. I'm not really sure. But then if you go down to the 4 terabyte model, that didn't happen. That one was basically acting like only a 6 gigabyte static cache, which never really grew anymore. You'd give it some time to idle, it would empty that cache, and then you'd go to write to it again, and you'd only get another 6 gig.
Mm-hmm.
And this test is run with the drive only half full. So this was 4 terabyte SSD, only half full. There's really no excuse for it to not have more than 6 gig of available SLC cache. It has the ability to grow that number upwards of, I'm trying to remember what the number was for the 4 terabyte. They're claiming like the total cache size maximum is like 78 gig. It should have been able to do that, even if it was half full, since it was 4 terabytes. But it didn't. So this kind of stuff is probably down to like tuning firmware and maybe the one capacity to just kind of like optimized differently than the other capacity.
Sure.
No real way to know. Maybe they'll see these results and, they've done it before. They've seen results in our reviews and then kind of optimized later on. Samsung usually does it silently. They don't usually tell me when they do it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
They want to keep your ego in check.
I guess. The endurance numbers are lower than an Evo, but they're still okay if you're just doing normal stuff with this drive. 360 terabytes written to a 1 terabyte SSD, you'd have to fill the drive empty to full 360 times, right? Like it's, that's actually good, given that it's quad level cell flash. 3-year warranty. The pricing is odd because you can currently buy Evos for lower than these 15 cent per gig MSRPs.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen that. I wasn't sure if that was like Black Friday pricing or what, but I've definitely seen the Evos coming under these.
Yes, but the Evo's MSRP is not 15 cents a gig.
Gotcha.
Right, the Evo's MSRP is like 20 something, like low 30s or something like that. So to see Samsung have an MSRP, which is presumably the highest price you should see them, right? That's impressive from them, and it should indicate that they're going to be probably closer to 10 cents a gig. Where's Ryan? He's not here. Too bad. We finally got there, and he's not around for it. Anyway, for them to move, other than, if not, people are just going to buy Evos anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So this should kind of open the door.
Now, when we've seen some drives hit that 10 cents a gig mark, like the Micron, that like Black Label Micron drive, and there was a couple more.
The 1100 does it, which is a straight TLC drive.
There were several deals in the past couple of days that hit 10 cents.
But they all seem to be, not in Micron's case, but in Micron's case, it was this particular drive that seemed kind of sketchy. And then there were other companies that were, lesser named companies that may not have the quality behind them.
I wouldn't say that's the case anymore with the sales that we've seen over Black Friday. I mean, you're talking 10, 11, 12 cents a gig for Samsung and Crucial, like mainline Crucial drives.
Okay.
Like it's gotten there.
Yeah, like MX500.
It just took Ryan quitting to actually get there.
Ryan had to go work somewhere else for us to hit 10 cents a gig.
I guess my point is, so we've looked like, for example, that Micron drive that we put as the cache drive for our Steam cache. Mm-hmm. Would you, at 10 cents a gig, with this drive with its issues, would you choose that over like one of those drives?
10 cents a gig, I would probably be
and
looking...
for Steam, why not?
Yeah, I would be looking past those issues, except for if I was that worried about like the responsiveness thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was not just a gamer, but a gamer that cares about every possible half-second loading a part of a game.
Yeah.
Right? Then I start caring about it. But really, I mean, once you're getting that low and the other thing...
you could always slap an Optane on this thing, right?
To cache it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, but just the things that confuse me here is, like, as an example, the reason that 660p in the random read chart got such a higher score compared to even the P1, which is based on the same exact platform, right? It's the same controller, the same DRAM even, the same IMFT flash. All those things were the same. The only difference was Intel just optimized how they did their caching differently. So when we did that test on that drive, it was reading more of that data from the SLC cache.
Mm-hmm.
It was aggressive about keeping it in the cache if it could, and not sticking it on the QLC, right? What I was surprised to not see Samsung doing is, like, that test is written and behaves in such a way where if a drive could stick it in the cache, like, it's giving it the best possible chance to. And I would imagine Samsung can read from their QLC flash in SLC mode probably faster than 7500 IOPS. Just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
I even went back through, I mean, all of these tests is a accumulation of multiple passes that run with the drive at different amounts of fill and everything else. I even went back through the individual results across that whole drive, and it never, like, beat 7500 across empty or full. It didn't care. So it's just kind of disappointing, and I almost feel like they rushed it, like, too much. I don't know. So maybe there could be firmware optimizations later, but Samsung tends to not do that. They usually only do firmwares to fix bugs, sort of thing. They don't usually. There's almost, I don't think I've ever seen performance increase aside from when there was a bug that reduced performance.
Well, maybe that's the case here. Maybe this is at a fundamental level some sort of bug.
Perhaps, or it's just this is the corner they had to cut in order to push out, 4-bit per cell this quickly.
Yeah.
No way to tell.
So you're saying that they would essentially need a more specific controller to get better performance due to the limitations of QLC.
I mean, maybe
Flash.
I mean, I don't know. With the drive this new, it's not like that performance hit would be coming from, having to do more error correction during the reads. Probably not. Maybe it's a trade-off for them to get endurance as high as they got it, given that it's a QLC SSD, because those endurance numbers are relatively high for what it is. It's
because in theory, I mean, you got SLC, MLC, TLC, and each one, the endurance goes down dramatically just because of the physical characteristics of the flash.
Yeah,
and you would expect that the same kind of degradation of physical characteristics that you can only be switched so many thousands of times.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the number of times you're switching it. You have to reduce it just because you can't accurately read that many states anymore. So, like, in other words, you can take...
Yeah, I mean, you've added complexity to the equation, and any kind of material degradation is going to have a pretty dramatic effect because you're not reading this as just simply on and off. It's now you're on,
16
you're
different
slightly
states.
on, you're almost off, and then you're really off.
I mean, you're taking a piece of silicon, you're pumping electrons into it enough so that there's 16 different independent states, like amounts of fill of a very small, like probably on the order, it's 3D, so it's probably like 30 nanometer, just a 30 nanometer bucket full of electrons. And you're able to not only fill it to 16 different levels, you're able to actually measure all those 16 different levels and even compensate for after some of the electrons have leaked out and still be able to reliably
It's kind of
do
ludicrous.
It's pretty insane that this works, right? I mean, yeah. Samsung was reluctant to do it. I don't think this drive would exist if not for Intel and Micron launching QLC SSDs. Because I mean, it was enough to where Samsung didn't even present at Flash Memory Summit last year or earlier this year. Sorry.
So, Alan, are you saying this is a case where competition is bad?
No, the competition is good. This is, if anything, it pushed Samsung
But
to
it
do
gives
this.
us
But
it gives us QLC.
well,
You want TLC at these prices.
I mean, the point for
I want,
QLC though,
I want SLC.
it's
at
not
these
supposed.
prices.
Well, I mean,
Well,
you
Slow down.
you get SLC if you only use the cache.
I want to be able to, using Samsung software, decide how much of the drive is SLC and how much of it is QLC.
That would
Can I
be-
just make my own cache? Like,
that would be nice.
I'll partition off like half the drive as SLC, and I'll use the other for like slower storage.
So that brings up an interesting point. If you install the Samsung software and you enable Turbo, are you really going to see a speed decrease when it's using, like, Turbo uses your RAM as a cache, right?
Yeah, as long as you're not using. Well, it still writes it to the drive.
Sure, but I presume
Your
like
read
it
speeds
dumps
would
it out
improve.
at a more paced.
If you're using Rapid,
Yeah.
which is the thing that's in the
Or
Samsung
Rapid,
software.
not Turbo.
I mean,
So-
you could have this drive installed in your system. You could have Rapid installed, turn it on. As long as you have RAM, you're willing to donate to it. It should accelerate those.
That's kind of what I'm
especially
interested in. Like, would you notice a difference between a 860 Evo and 860 QVO if you had that turned on? Maybe you wouldn't.
It would be hit or miss. It would just be if it was a cache hit on the RAM, it would be the same either way. And then if it wasn't, it would just be slower on this.
Yeah.
It'd be a mixed bag because I don't think it's going to fit the whole game in your RAM cache.
Well, no, but
And it's kind of not super intelligent. Rapid is not super intelligent about what it sticks where.
yeah.
It's not to the degree of like Optane caching stuff is. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a thing that'll make SSDs cheaper. I would consider it a budget product. Don't knock it for it not being your next performance SSD, because if you want that, then you need to get an Evo or better.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
15 cents a gig MSRP is a good place to start.
Can't really fault it for that.
All right. Next up, we got a motherboard review from Mori. It's the Gigabyte Z390 Aorus Pro. And this is, was it last week or relatively recently, they did their whole event where they announced a whole slew of Z390 products. This is it's a mid-range board, or at least it's priced as a mid-range board, but it's got quite an impressive feature set. He really liked it. It's got multiple M.2 slots with covers for either aesthetics or cooling or however you want to weight those. Lots of RGB, a very intuitive interface, and it's a good performer. Mori does incredibly detailed reviews, so this is like 8 or 9 pages long. So check that out if you want to read more about it here. But let me jump to the relevant parts here, or the most interesting parts, I should say.
CMOS placement.
Yes.
Oh, well, yes. I think he said that was fine.
It is actually. It's not too bad. It's into the second PCIe slot.
Yeah. So you look at comparing it to the Z370 line, and then obviously stepping up to X299 and X470. It's right where it should be in terms of its performance, cooling, noise. No major drawbacks really for the board. Where was his got a chart here? Good overclocker, and the pricing is I think, well, the MSRP, or at least the initial street prices were over 200. It's now listed at sites like Newegg for 180. And I think Amazon has a version of it too for less than, it was like 190. So very good price for that performance. He said the only negative is if you want to control the RGBs, you have to do it in a Windows software. There wasn't real good BIOS controls for RGBs.
Which I actually prefer, because usually I just want to shut those off and leave them off and not have to install any tools in the OS.
Well, then that's true. Yeah. If that's your way.
How many desktop Linux users have the whole RGB-itis going on?
Probably.
They
have them all at the defaults if they have
what's
them
a
on their
desktop
system.
Linux user?
Exactly.
I think it's an Alex.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's like, oh no, it requires Windows software to turn the RGBs off.
I do find it convenient to be able to quickly just go in and shut it off or change it. Like,
It should be in the
I'll
BIOS.
be on a system
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, it's like solid red. I wanted to make it like blue for these pictures or something. Like I try to make the motherboard match the case lights for case photos, and it's like I've got to have the software installed in this drive, and I switch drives, and I've got to download the software. I don't know. It's a nice thing.
But no, being able to just kill it all is kind of nice.
Yeah.
I want a physical toggle switch on the motherboard.
Yeah, no, it's just
Hey, that'll be the next thing.
yeah.
Like on that one GPU. Right?
Yeah.
It totally needs a jumper. There needs to be a default all RGB off jumper.
Mhm.
Well,
Which
for the
doesn't
cases
involve
that
me
support like
soldering off
RSync and
RGBs.
stuff, like you can just control it through the button on the case, probably. But that might be software dependent, though.
It would be.
It's a crazy world out there. We
Yeah.
could use some RGB standards.
But you know, he
It's
said,
kind of nice because, like, you compare this to the flagship one from Gigabyte, the Aorus Extreme, as opposed to the Pro. That one's selling at $550
yeah.
as an MSRP.
Now, and to be fair though,
Huge.
Gigabyte's RS line, there's a lot of products in that lineup, so they really do spread the gamut. It's, you know, like I think that RS Pro is an eATX board. This is just ATX. So there's a lot of there is a lot of range that you can pick from, like in Gigabyte's lineup. But you know, looking at what you get with the multiple M.2s, the RGB, if that's your thing, it's got Intel networking. You know, so I'm not sure how much that matters these days. For some reason, maybe it's no longer important, but I always like to look for that Intel networking chipset. You get that, and for under $200 street price is very good. And like all motherboards with chipsets that have lower PCIe lanes, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices. You know, so if you want to run your GPU it's by 16, then some of the other slots will run slower or not at all. And if you plug in multiple M.2 drives, then some of your USB ports don't work. That stuff's common to all of these boards with these lower end chipsets, or not lower end, but you know, the desktop class chipsets with limited PCIe. But check out the full review if you're interested. He gives it a gold award, and says the pros really outweigh the cons. It's a good looking board. So that's the Gigabyte Z390 RS Pro.
And did you see all the power inputs on that thing on the 12 volt? It was like
yes.
8 plus 4?
Yep. There you go.
Thinks it's a Threadripper board.
That's beefy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that 9900K.
Good
Yeah.
overclocking. Yeah, you need the power these days. All right. I think that's it for the review. So a lot of reviews because of that extra week here. But let's jump into the news, and we've got something.
You gonna do the ad?
I need to see the thing.
Right
Okay,
there, it's right there on the thing.
we do have an ad.
We
don't
do have an ad
All right. Well,
that you remembered at the last minute before we went live.
no, you just weren't here. I remembered it earlier. But okay. Well, let's take a break for our ad here. Alan, do you like to read?
No. I like to listen.
Well, listening's like reading,
Yes.
right? And you know, so Audible is our sponsor this week, and I was looking at my personal Audible account because I've been an Audible member for 15 years, I
Yeah.
think.
I didn't say that just because it's an Audible ad. Like I legit, like I,
Oh, sure,
I
sure.
prefer to listen to audiobooks than reading like a novel or something like that.
And why do you like that?
It depends. Like sometimes I like the person that's doing the reading. Like sometimes they'll have the author of the book do the reading, or
Mhm.
sometimes they'll have some other notable person that, you know, does a pretty good job of doing it. Like Ready Player One was one of my favorite. You know, I own the book.
Is that Will Wheaton?
Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
Yeah. I own the book, but I bought the book after I had bought the audiobook
Mhm.
and listened to the audiobook. And it's like, it was unabridged. Like you read it cover to cover.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I get a better experience out of that. It helps me kill time in the car when I'm commuting.
Well, that's it for
Right.
me. It's like it gives you the chance to read when you can't read with your eyes. Like if you're driving or doing work around the house or just even playing video games, relaxing, whatever.
Yeah.
You
Reading books while driving is frowned upon.
not yet until we're a few years away from those self-driving cars. At that point, maybe we'll look at it again. But until then, yeah, definitely. You want. I mean, for me at least, I want to read. I want to get these experiences. I can't always do them because my eyes aren't free.
Yep.
But for me though, I've been like I said for 15 years, and I have 450 books in my Audible library.
Ooh.
I was kind of
Okay.
shocked.
I don't have that many.
It's crazy, and it's not just because I've been that. I don't think it adds up all the months of the credits you get.
No, that's only
But-
like 2 free per month.
But they do. They have sales all the time where you get like 3 for 2 or 2 for 1, and so I've stacked it up in that sense.
Yeah.
And so I think about that 450 books. I think I've finished. I've listened to good chunks of all of them for sure, and I've finished the vast majority of them. And that's thousands of hours of knowledge and entertainment that I wouldn't have had if I had to rely on reading with my eyes.
It's true.
And in terms of what I can listen to, Audible has an incredible selection. They've got sci-fi, fantasy, thrillers, mysteries, biographies and autobiographies, true crime, a ton of nonfiction, which is actually what most of my library ends up being. I do like listening to nonfiction, and it integrates in everything. Audible seems to be on everything. It's built into my car. I can get it on my phone, I can get it on my laptop. I can listen to it on my Kindle because some of the Kindle devices have Audible built in, so you can listen to the audiobook either on its own or while you read the ebook, which is a really neat feature. And one of the books that I'm listening to right now is interesting. Michael Pollan?
No.
He's like a science author. He's written a bunch of books on nutrition. One of the books was In Defense of Food, The Omnivore's Dilemma. These are like New York Times bestsellers. You may have heard of him, but he has this new book out called How to Change Your Mind. I guess it came out earlier this year. And it's on psychedelic drugs. And it's really interesting. It's really incredible. He talks about LSD and psilocybin.
Like how to actually change your mind.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. How to change your mind, because I had no idea. I've never used these substances. To quote The Office, no one ever offered me any. But they have an incredible history. So this book is it's part history book, it's part science, it's part health and mental health. And he narrates it too. He does a really good job. I'd never listened to any of his other books before, so listening to him narrate it is pretty interesting. And he takes you through the history of these drugs, how they came about in the labs, how the counterculture of the 60s kind of took them, how scientists back then were doing really amazing work in terms of using these substances for treating mental health problems, treating Vietnam soldiers who had PTSD, treating people with schizophrenia. And obviously,
stop worrying about stuff when you get high, apparently.
Well, it's not that. Apparently, there's like something about it that just without having experience, I don't even know how to describe it.
Your chemistry and how
but
you deal with things.
He goes through this scientifically, and it's incredibly fascinating. I listened to it over the course. It's like 20 hours. I listened to it over the course of 2 days, maybe 2.5. Couldn't put it down really, or couldn't take the headphones out.
I'm gonna have to check that one out.
It's really, really interesting, and it's especially if you're a square like me who doesn't have any other insight into this other than what the mainstream sort of moral crisis, think of the children angle.
Yeah.
And it's actually funny because early on in the book, he interviews a guy who is sort of like a 60s hippie type, like, traditionally like, oh man, they expand your mind, you go to a different dimension. Right. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, because this is still early in the book. I'm like, this is going to be one of those. And he interviews him, but then after the interview is over, he even says in the narration, yeah, that guy was kind of crazy. But that doesn't mean there's no benefit here, because there is scientific, there's cause for really good scientific research in this field that unfortunately our politics and our society haven't caught up with. And he lays out a really convincing case, including trying them himself and reporting his experiences. And so that's just one kind of book where it was recommended to me through the Audible recommendation system. When you have your account, checked it out. I was able to listen to a sample, make sure I liked the narration, and picked it up. And I probably wouldn't have encountered that and wouldn't have learned about that without my Audible subscription. So if you're intrigued by stories like this or any of the other thousands of topics that you can find, why not treat yourself this year in this holiday season? Go to audible.com/PCPer or text PCPer to 500-500, and you can get 3 months of Audible, your first 3 months, for $6.95 a month, which is more than half off the regular price. And as an Audible member, what you get for that subscription fee is 3 titles every month. That's 1 audiobook and 2 Audible originals, which are great. You can't find them anywhere else. These are exclusive to Audible, hence the name Audible Original. And they're they're everything from short stories to discussions to different narrations of like essays and things. There's tons of them, and they're really well produced. So you're really going to like that. And with Audible, you keep the books you get. So if you do end up canceling your subscription at some point down the road, I mean, like I haven't, obviously, I don't think you will if you get into it. But if you do, you keep them forever. You can continue to access those books even after your subscription ends. And also, they have the Audible Great Listen Guarantee. If you don't like a book for any reason at all, you go online, you check a box, and they give you the credit back so you can swap it for a different book. And I've had to do that maybe like 2 or 3 times in those 15 years because I just didn't like the narrator or the book went in a direction I wasn't excited about. And it's truly no questions asked. I had a new book in my account within like 2 minutes. So you don't have to worry about wasting a credit, if you're not sure about a book. So again, check out audible.com/PCPer or text PCPer text PCPer to 500-500 to get your first 3 months of Audible for just $6.95 a month. And thanks to Audible for supporting the PC Perspective podcast.
Audible.
Hey,
It is, it's
should
a great
hang out with me
service.
more often.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Maybe I'll have to. That book got me thinking about some things.
I'm listening to a book right now called Where Wizards Stay Up Late, which is about the origins of the internet. It's very interesting. It's one of those books where it's dense enough. There's no way I would sit down and read one of these, especially taking care of my 3-year-old all the time.
Yeah.
But put on headphones, walk around the house, pick up after him, feed him. I'm listening to a book all day, and I can get 6 hours into this book, and it's very interesting stuff. Like there's so much of the nonfiction that I have collected over the years on Audible, and books about computer history and stuff like this that are fascinating, but I never even would have taken. I would have looked at a book like this, and it's like 400 pages, and like, no, I can't I'll never get to this.
Yeah.
But I'll finish it.
It just gives you an opportunity to get that information when you wouldn't otherwise have a chance to. It's great. It's the one service I've been, like I said, 15 years. Never regretted a single month. All right. Well, let's get back to the show. We've got a story here about some more of the NVIDIA RTX, I don't know what you call it, controversy, saga.
Combustion. Called combustion.
So the RTX cards have had some problems. NVIDIA came out and did finally admit, I don't know if that was after the last show or not, but they did mention that some cards have some problems, but this is a whole new problem. Over at Hard OCP, somebody posted some pictures that indicated that their card caught on fire. And so Alan and Scott got together and took a look at the pictures that were provided. And we didn't have this particular card that this user had here at the office, so we couldn't check for sure. But there were some sites that have teardowns.
Yeah, somebody did a really good teardown with pretty high-res pictures that we could, take a look at and try to get a good sort of X marks the spot of where what looked like the hot spot.
Find out what went wrong.
Right. And that X is over an inductor. Inductors are basically shorts anyway, so that's probably not the thing that caught on fire. It really looked like the board blistered, and like if you go back up to the actual fire picture, it looked like the layers just like delaminated and like expanded.
Mm-hmm.
Because it actually, the board got thicker where like at the center of the hotspot. And the closest I could think is that there was a set of TSVs, or the VIAs, sorry. I was going for the very small version of TSVs, or the larger version of TSVs. Go up to the other picture.
This one?
Yeah. So see, there's like a choke point there on the left, slightly above where the X is, with 2 sets of 6 little holes there in the PCB, little circles, right? And that's where you would try to connect 2 layers of the board, or maybe not that layer to something else, but within the layers of the board, there's probably some vias that are connecting other layers amongst themselves. And that means that trace, if you look at it, it has to get really narrow when it cuts through that elbow there, right? And goes around those 12 holes. And you can see how thick the pad is above and below, or how thick the trace is. And then so it's kind of like a choke point. I would think that maybe that's not the design defect, but maybe something else on the board caused a lot of current to go through that spot, more than designed. And if you were going to overdraw that part of the circuit, that's the spot that would light up, really. And again, this is just guessing. But all the other components that were around that, nothing was a thing that's not like already a short. Like that big resistor there, that's a shunt resistor. It's used to measure current. It's almost a dead short already.
Mhm.
If it shorted, nothing would go wrong. The board would just not be able to measure its its current correctly, right? But yeah, I don't know.
So again,
We were
you
just
said
spitballing.
guessing because these are based on that one picture provided,
Yeah.
and then also based on pictures we found from another site that had that same board. So we can't say anything definitively, but
Well, and for all we know, maybe there was a PSU cable that abraded itself on the side of the board.
But I mean, something could have just hit it on that edge and shorted it. I mean, there are traces with just a solid 12 volts on them right there along the edge.
Dope.
but nothing obvious that we're seeing that would lead us to believe this is some massive defect that's going to affect everyone.
If there was a defect somewhere like to cause that, it would probably be like in the phases of the power.
Are you running
the
Windows Update again?
Yeah.
Alan.
It'd be in the power phases of the GPU, like right next to the GPU somewhere. If one of those guys just dead shorted,
Yeah.
and stayed switched on, right now, it might have also taken up the GPU along with it while it was lighting that edge of the board on fire. But
Sure.
Again, wild speculation.
Okay. So, I mean, if you have an RTX card in your system, don't panic.
Yeah.
If you had the issues
there have been failures.
there is
Right.
an issue with failures of reference design cards
Yes.
that NVIDIA has thankfully finally acknowledged and is looking to address. But for this particular issue, I wouldn't panic. It doesn't seem to be like a
And
mention.
I would say that the other issue is not that the boards are all like overheating parts of the board and potentially burning themselves. Like that's not what the other failures have been.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if there's any others. I think this is the only one that was like this board actually cooked. Right.
The only one with pictures.
Oh.
Plenty of people said, "Oh, me too," but
Well,
yeah, it's the internet.
Pixar, it didn't happen. I'm sure that if they just say me too for that kind of a thing, you'd bet they would be posting pictures if it actually happened. So
Yeah, I mean, there's the hype over this now, where it's you get a good internet points if you can rag on RTX. So I'm sure we'd see more if it was more widespread.
but that burn is so ray traced.
I'm sorry.
That burn mark is so.
It
looks so realistic because of the ray tracing.
Mhm.
Yeah, that totally needs an RTX on.
Yeah,
logo on top.
RTX on off.
RTX.
I'm
it
sure.
does.
I would be disappointed if that meme hasn't been spread already. So good to know. Good to have us look at it. But I wouldn't go panicking that your card's going to start on fire if you've got one in your system. Now, we alluded to this earlier with the RX 590 review, but here's just some more detail on that deal they've got going right now. So if you buy an RX 590, an RX 580, or RX 570, you get free games, which Jeremy noted are all sequels of some kind. And then the games you get...
And Tom Clancy Teaches Division has got to be the best one.
Yes. You better get this right, kid. So you get, with the 580 and the 570, you get your choice of two of Resident Evil 2, Devil May Cry 5, or The Division 2. With the 590 or a Vega card, if you're still buying those, you get all three, which AMD points out is $180 value. So
yeah, I mean, if you don't have those games already and you want them,
never trust.
Well,
what
you
we say
don't,
about
because
video
none of them are
games, because Devil May Cry 5 is a third-person hack and slash, as opposed to my poor description earlier.
Oh,
is that what? That's
none of them are out yet.
Hackintosh?
Hack and
slash, rather. Yeah.
Hackintosh,
Yeah,
not
sorry.
a Hackintosh.
Had a little short circuit there in my own traces.
Toshin.
Yeah, and they're not out yet. You can get them if you buy the card now or through February 9th, 2019, as long as supplies last, which I guess in this case are just the number of keys they've arranged to provision for this program. And then once you win, you've got till April 6th of next year to claim it. So if you do win, or sorry, once you win, not win, once you buy it and you get the keys assigned to you,
The more
make
you
sure
buy, the
claim
more
them.
you win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, none of these games particularly appeal to me, but if they're your thing, that's something to consider when you're pricing out these cards. Okay, next up we've got, this is pertinent here because we've got Alan sitting next to me running Windows updates during the show.
I'm trying to test Jeremy's post there.
So I guess it's good we got the system hooked up here instead of on mine, but we've got a bunch of Windows problems here. Jeremy had multiple stories for us over the last 2 weeks. I've kind of tied them all together under a single entry here, but tell us.
Oh, no, these are just the ones from this week.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. It's been a rough time here, but tell us about this, Jeremy.
Well, I mean, we can start out with the network drives, which is just freaking absolutely gorgeous because Windows 10 October update, days before December, it just keeps on giving. It's not that it's deleting your files without consent anymore, which is nice. You know, that's a step in the right direction. It just starts dropping your mapped network drives.
It just prevents you from accessing your files that are on your network storage.
And it's like, well, I want my P drive back. Okay, which one is your P drive again? Is that Kerson's S drive or is it the Q drive? Yeah, and so it's consistent. You reboot, you lose your network drives. You stay running for a while, you lose your network drives. Obviously, you shouldn't be using network drives anymore. I mean, Microsoft has moved to SharePoint Online. You should too.
There you go. And I like how they point out, like, Microsoft acknowledged this. They went, oh, yeah, that's a bug. Sure. We'll have a fix for you next year.
Oh, yeah, no, we're talking 2019.
I mean, it's
hopefully Q1.
Yeah. But
hopefully.
There's the nice Bluetooth audio bug in 1809 that's been there since beta that hasn't been fixed.
Yeah.
That's never been fixed. Oh, but they really, really dislike audio, Ken.
Yeah.
Because not only did they get rid of the Bluetooth audio, they've sort of dropped any support whatsoever for Intel audio support through external video. So if you've got a nice HDMI connection, you plug it into your TV. Well, I hope you weren't hoping to be able to listen to it.
Some people rely on the even monitor HDMI audio.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't.
Apparently.
Anymore. Because it's not a thing.
Yeah.
And just to make it even better, the absolute best thing that they did, apart from the Azure outage, which only some of us care about, which is still going on. If you turned on 2FA, you get 0 FA, and they have no Fs to A. But they broke their own bloody media player.
Yeah.
The newest patches that went out to try and fix the other audio issues broke the ability to seek on Windows Media Player. You can't use the bar to jump around anymore because
you just got to start from the beginning. That's it.
It's seriously.
Oh, who still uses Windows Media Player? I mean, it's all about Groove now, right?
Yeah.
Or the video, the movie player, or whatever they call it.
But every once in a while, it likes to default back to the original programs just for reasons unknown to anyone but Microsoft. Actually, no, it's probably unknown to Microsoft as well. It just, boop, all right, you're no longer using VLC or Groove. You're using our Windows Media Player again, but you have to listen to it all. As the artist intended, there is no jumping through songs. You have to listen from start until finish.
Nice. I mean,
it continues. So there were 3 or 4 other things that I just didn't have time to post this week.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be at this point. We've got to start considering that all those like QA testers who they fired are intentionally like screwing the operating system. Like still, they didn't revoke their VPN key or whatever. They can get in there and like.
It's not just that. They now have this fast track thing and feedback, and the tool even shows up on your desktop, I think, as an icon, and it's its own little portal, and you go there and you give feedback. And all these times that there's these things that, you know, crap hits the fan on Microsoft when they tried to roll this thing out and it backfired on them. There's always at least a handful of posts about, hey, this thing breaks this. You shouldn't launch this.
Yeah, I mean, you got like, Paul Thurrott, who's at Thurrott.com and does Windows Weekly over on Twit.
Yeah.
He's been losing his damn mind. Yeah. I mean, this guy he's even keeled. I've been listening to him for 15, 20 years, however long he's been doing podcasts.
Yeah.
Microsoft will completely crap the bed, and he will sit there and rationalize it. And I mean, he'll admit it, but he'll be reasonable.
Politely correct them.
Yeah. He is losing it. And over the last few weeks, because every single issue, as you said, every single issue that's come out, from the severe to just the annoying, have had multiple reports in the Feedback Hub.
Yep.
Upvotes, some separate reports slightly describing the same issue slightly differently. There is no excuse for Microsoft to be screwing up this bad. And then it's doubly insulting when you go on Twitter and you got, now it's not necessarily her fault, but you got Donna Sakar, who's the insider chief now, and she's being all cutesy and posting little things and oh, tell us how you use Windows. Like, well, I don't use it because you just killed my network drives and deleted my user profile. So
listen, we're giving you the QA for free. You could at least pay attention.
Yeah. That's the problem.
I mean, this when Microsoft went to this system, the whole thing was fine. You're going to be updating us regularly, whatever. I mean, some people didn't like it, but you got to get this right. And they got it. They screwed up initially. They kind of hit a period about a year ago where things were okay. They had 1 or 2 updates come out that were pretty smooth, and then they've just gone right off the deep end now. I mean, I've had multiple.
Roll up the windows to, oh, it's a new bug. Oh, it's a new bug.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a new bug.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. I don't know what's going on there, and obviously, I mean, they got to be taking it seriously. But at the same time, their stock price is soaring, and Satya Nadel's getting all this
because
praise.
it's Windows as a service, and it's brilliant, and they love it.
It's a lesson that, you know.
So the other thing is that drives me nuts is their whole roll-up thing. Before, I could pick and choose. Even if it was a bloody service pack, you could pick and choose. Yeah, we don't want this one because it blows that up. Oh, I don't like that one. It tastes funny. I don't like that one because it actually doesn't work in our domain.
Right.
And then push that out. With Windows as a service, no, it's this ball of hate, and you either take it or you don't.
Yeah.
You can't have just a bit of it.
And that's a shame because I don't know where else to send people. You know, Alex is over there just going, "Oh, Linux."
No, I'm not. I would never make that argument. Seriously, I would never argue that people who would be using Windows on the desktop should be using Linux on a desktop instead, because
you just
that's the wrong tool for the job.
You want to keep grandmas out of your support forums.
What was that? When they broke everybody's webcam.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When that update
came
came
out.
out.
Anniversary update, I think.
The
right?
anniversary update, right?
Yeah.
That was the first thing where they had the Feedback Hub, and like there were a bunch of people reporting it on there for months, apparently, and then they just said screw it, and they just pushed it out anyway. And then there was this huge backlash because they basically just broke everybody's freaking webcam.
Yeah.
Right. And that should have been the event where they learned that lesson. There should not have been more repeats of this.
There have been multiple events where
now
any reasonable person would say.
Now they just keep happening.
Yeah.
Now it's literally just like Jeremy said with that one post, and he throws it up against the wall and sees what sticks. So just try this patch and try that patch. Yep. Oh, it broke something else. Try that patch. Just ridiculous.
Problem is, you got a guy in the corner saying, "Oh, look, market share is still going up.
Yeah,
still going up.
Yeah,
still going up.
Yeah,
keep doing it."
Yeah, that's the issue. Is I fear that at the top they're focused on that more than they should be.
You think?
But all right, well, everybody listening to this probably understands. We don't have to beat this corpse of a horse.
What else you gonna use?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right,
Sometimes my spleen's got a
competition on
vent.
desktop.
I'm sorry, what was that, Sebastian?
So this is the problem with no competition on desktop. Like, yeah, Linux exists, but that has existed for 15, 20 years for users, and it's still not catching on for obvious reasons. And if you want to run software, if you want to run AAA games, if you want, to run Office, you're using Windows, or you might be using a Mac. But if you are a computer hardware enthusiast, you're running Windows. And unfortunately, especially with DirectX 12 being exclusive to Windows 10, you pretty much have to run Windows 10 if you want to run the newest stuff. And forget like the hardware, of course. Their new hardware that comes out is pretty much only having drivers for Windows 10 released. Even if it's theoretically or technically possible to have Windows 8 support at this point, you're pretty much stuck with Windows 10. So they obviously have a very advantageous market position at this point, and they're releasing beta software to users.
To everybody.
And, to everybody.
As your operating system, too. It's not like beta.
I would totally be fine with this if I was just beta testing, like, the new Windows 10. Okay, I'll try it out. This is
let's
not
see how I can
ready.
break shit.
Yeah, I mean the stakes as the Windows 10 market share increases, the stakes are just getting higher and higher for them to not screw up these patches.
And so, someone made a good point too. I think it might have been Paul Throd or maybe it was on Reddit, but somebody, a Windows analyst, made a point that because they've ignored the insiders who have been doing the work and have been finding this stuff for so long, they're going to give up. We're approaching a point where if they haven't already, they're going to go, it's not worth it. They're not listening. And so that makes it even worse going forward because then Microsoft, even if they do decide to pay attention, isn't going to have the same level of data coming in.
Yeah. I mean, the insider feedback thing is a freaking gold mine.
Yeah.
Like companies wish they had something like that.
Yeah.
Microsoft has it.
Millions of people in that program. It's incredible.
Well, the problem is, though, that for Microsoft, it's like, well, it doesn't matter because they're not being paid. So obviously they're just amateurs. They're not professionals. They don't know what they're talking about.
Well, okay, so...
Well, you fired all your... No, don't tell me things I don't want to hear. Don't tell me about how we fired all the paid ones. It's just we're supposed to be listening to the amateur ones, except we don't really want to.
There is a lot of that also in the Feedback Hub, but it has a mechanism to... That stuff doesn't rise to the top. It doesn't get upvoted.
No, it doesn't.
You get some random person that just doesn't know how to use a mouse or something, and they make a complaint. Yeah, okay, it's not going to get upvoted like the other, the hey, your update breaks everybody's webcam thing that had dozens and dozens of upvotes and was like the most popular thing on the, on the whole dang site right before they pushed out the update.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any.
Strange how a bunch of corporations are still holding on to Windows 7. Tooth and claw.
Yeah, Microsoft's really counting on that upgrade revenue next year, huh? But so no answers unfortunately, other than hopefully just don't give up. Keep
next year
at Microsoft.
Just keep updating.
Next year it will all be better.
Sure. Well, all right, let's move on. We're going over time here. So we got Sebastian up with a news item about an AMD Vega powered gaming handheld.
Yes. By the way, the one thing I didn't see anything about was any estimate of battery life.
Yes. Well, you got a car battery strapped to your back.
Yeah.
This is pretty funny because I found an article by our own Jeremy from, I think, 2015 when this first changed from Steam Boy, not affiliated with Steam.
Yeah, I remember Steam Boy.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, well, we're the Smock Zero. Where did they come up with the name? I want to know.
Well, you lay it in a puddle, and next thing you know,
Smock Zero.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's got the same letters, same number of letters as Switch.
Isn't that the thing like when you were in grade school and you did the painting, and then you put on a smock?
Smock? Well, I mean, I think it's spelled differently.
Smock,
but yeah,
SMOCK.
Maybe, I don't know.
I've never
Smocks
spelled the
haven't
word.
been part of my life since I could spell. So
right. Dad's old T-shirt.
It's the thing that keeps you from getting paint all over yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
But originally, this was going to be what was it originally going to be? A Merlin Falcon platform from AMD. And that was actually still on one of the crowdfunding pages in the official specs, but they have updated it to a Ryzen embedded solution. It's the V1605B SoC with Vega 8 graphics. It's a quad-core 8-thread processor, and this thing, it's just, I have no faith in it actually being released, but if it is, I mean, this is 4 years now of crowdfunding and different name changes and configuration changes, but they're promising it will actually ship next year at some point. So,
okay.
Perhaps.
Listen, I don't want to call bullshit on what's on the screen right now, but I call bullshit. The Witcher 3 720p medium at 40 frames per second. No way.
Well, it's at 720 medium.
No
settings.
No, not The Witcher 3.
Well, they've only got like 1,500 pixels to drive, so.
Well, I want to see one of these play Star Citizen.
Yeah,
and then like the crowdfunding universe will implode in on itself.
The Smock Z running Star Citizen coming in 2022.
Mm-hmm. For real this time.
We promise.
All right. Well, it's something to keep an eye on. Do we know? Obviously, the crowd are they still taking money or?
Oh, they'll probably take your money.
Like how much? What do they want?
They'll happily take your money.
I went to both pages. I thought it was closed. Let's see what Kickstarter lets me do. It says final hours. It said final hours last time I went to this page.
They're just leaving it in final
hours.
Affiliated
with Leon's
duffel bag for cash. Let's go.
Oh, this was back from 2016. This is an old Kickstarter.
That's still in the final hours?
Yeah, still in the final hours. It's Indiegogo, I think, currently.
What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Well, something to keep an eye on. All right. Well, we'll if this ever releases, we promise we will do what we can to get one and actually test it out for you. Quick news story here from Jeremy. We've got some RGB control coming to Ada 64.
It is absolutely true. And the sad part is it makes the RGBs useful.
Oh boy.
It will install a driver that will actually let you take over some of the RGB software from like SteelSeries, Cooler Master, and Corsair and provide useful data like your CPU utilization or temperatures or current voltages. You set it up so as the RGB changes color, it's giving you visual information, or as they start to glow or not glow. I hate to say it, but that actually makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, I know like NZXT has some software that they'll do with their RGB controller that'll, like, you hook it up to temperature sensors and it'll change from blue to red as your CPU or GPU temp rises. So that's definitely cool. But to see it in a, it's not compatible with everything, but to see it in more of a multi-platform.
Ada 64 is pretty much compatible with everything.
Well, I meant the RGB control. It says SteelSeries, Cooler Master, Corsair. So
yeah.
Not truly everything, but I mean, having it multi-platform, having it be in a piece of software that I trust to run on my computer, perhaps more than some of these controller software packages from some of these companies. So that's cool to check. So that's version, make sure you get 5.99 before we get to version 6 here. So they're squeezing in that last feature.
5.100.
Oh, right. Of course.
It could happen.
How could I forget? All right. Next up, we've got another story here from Jeremy about porting Black Mesa to Source Engine. Is that what this is?
Do you not know
I missed
what
this.
Black Mesa is?
Well,
I've heard of it, but this is something Half-Life, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It is Half-Life 1 ported to the Source Engine.
Okay.
These guys started it ages ago. I'm thinking 2015-ish, 2014-ish.
Yep.
And originally it was free. It was a mod. And so they slowly let out the chapters in it. And my God, Half-Life 1 in the Source Engine is just sheerly gorgeous.
Oh, this looks pretty good, yeah.
And so they've taken forever to get to the worst part of the game. Or it might be someone's favorite. It's not me.
Yeah, it's the end levels of the game, yeah.
Yeah, it's Zen, because before Black Mesa, it was free. Then eventually it got greenlighted on Steam, and you could pay a bit of money for it.
Yeah.
But it ended after shooting the flying head things in the portal into Zen, and that was the end of it. And so now you get Testicle Monster in gorgeous freaking Source Engine.
So this is the end of this goes all the way to the end of the game then, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. They're going to have to get my money now.
How do they charge for this?
It's on Steam.
So they must have done a
No,
deal
that's
with-
not what I mean.
Oh, I know, and I fully
how do they-
understand.
how
It's
do they
not
get away
their
with
intellectual property. How do they charge
I
for
would
it?
imagine they worked out something with.
Yeah, I guess Valve of all companies
They-
would be the one to work something out with
Yeah.
someone like this.
Valve sort of looked at them and said, wait, you're putting out better things than we are Half-Life related. Yeah, why don't you come help us out here? And we might shoot you a penny on the dollar.
Nice.
It was on special. It's $22 right now. Maybe a bit cheaper in
And
American money.
Is it one of those things where you have to have the original assets and then it's a new engine, or does it
Nope.
replace everything?
No, it pulls
Okay.
down. That's the whole game.
Yeah. So
Like the way they package it.
$22 for Half-Life in a modern engine.
Yeah.
It's
When
not
it was a free update, you had to already have whatever the other.
Gotcha.
You had to have some other title or something, and then it went on top of it and turned it into Black Mesa. But now it's just its own. Once it hit Steam as a for-purchase thing, there were no other dependencies.
That's right. I haven't played Half-Life since the original. Man, I have good time to revisit it.
And it's so much better looking than trying to replay the original
Oh,
as
yeah.
it was released.
If we can go back to the screen here, YouTube recommended a video with Jay's 2 cents, and he has the look on his face I had when that video started playing. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
This is Half-Life?
Imagine
Nice.
if it had RTX.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's like Black Mesa's like.
Is Source Engine integrating RTX stuff?
No.
No, I don't know.
But at the same time, Half-Life 3 comes out.
They don't actually develop video games over there.
No,
But I mean,
they just make money.
But is the engine like bringing support for RTX?
Oh, I don't think so.
As a technology. Okay.
I would like to see Black Mesa.
It's not exactly
have,
on the
like,
cutting
reflections.
Well, Jensen said it just works.
I
Yeah.
mean, 8 lines of code or whatever.
There's some interesting upscaling stuff they could do, but yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, next up, we've got a new power supplies from Silverstone, and this is if you saw
Who wrote this one? I've never heard of him.
It's some loser. Ken and Allen did a was that an ITX build? The Geek Case? Yeah, they did a great little small form factor build a few weeks ago. We still got the video up on the site if you want to check it out. So
I believe the video was about as long as this podcast will be, actually.
We'll see.
possibly longer.
Yep.
But so obviously small form factor is increasingly popular, and the SFX power supply format though has been limited in wattage. You've got some companies hit 600, I think maybe one hit 650. Silverstone came out last year with a SFX-L format, which they could push to 800, but it was longer, it was bigger, so it didn't truly fit that specification for size. So now they've come out now with the 700 watt true SFX specification size power supply. It's launching next month, and so it's the first in that form factor to hit 700 watts. So at 700 watts, you can put the beefiest GPU, although I guess you might be constrained in size there too, but you can put those really high powered processors, those beefy GPUs in there, and you can accommodate a much more powerful system.
Yeah, I mean, Ken and I got a 2080 Ti and a pretty good CPU into
990 or 990 rather.
Was that what was
an
it?
8086?
Oh, that's right. It was the special edition.
I will say that this probably won't be on top for very long. There's a Corsair 750 watt one that's kind of been leaking out all over the place, and I would probably expect retail availability announcement at CES, but yeah, 700 watts.
Well,
is
it's
still
nice to see
really
them
damn
emphasize
good.
girth over length.
Sure. And it's got a 92 millimeter fan. I think they said so. It's might not be the quietest, but it's a fluid dynamic bearing fan, so maybe not too bad. But if you need the power and you need it now, check that one out.
Yeah.
Continuing with power supplies, some not so positive news. The trade war that's been going on globally, primarily between the US and China, is starting to hit more components. And this time it's Seasonic Power Supplies. They put out a press release stating that starting December 1st, that's just a few days away, all of their products pretty much are going to have an increase in MSRP due to the issues with tariffs and component cost, raw material cost. So they put a chart out. I mean, it's good that they're clear about it. They put this chart out. They have a post on their website, and you can clearly see what it was before, what it'll be new. It ranges from as little as $5, and which equates to about 5%, to $25, I think, maybe 30, which is about 12% on some of the higher end models. So it's not the end of the world, but if you're doing one of those budget builds, like I want to hit $500, I want to hit an $800 PC, having 10% more on your power supply can be an issue, without taking into regard that other components may continue to go up as this trade war continues.
So I'm thinking of starting Hellstrom Seasonic shipping. It comes in through Canada.
There you go.
I have to worry about it.
I'm sure that there would be no problem with that at all. So check that out if you're interested in a Seasonic supply. They've got the information up on the prices. And if you buy before December 1st, even if it doesn't ship, you get the old price, the pre-raised price. So if you're on the fence about one of these, go get it now, because as we're recording this, it's the 28th.
Mm-hmm.
So got a couple days left for you.
Oh, don't worry, it's the 29th now.
It's the 29th though. Okay. Well, not in the West Coast. All right. So picks of the week, I guess. That was it. All right. Picks of the week. I've got one first. It is a SanDisk USB dual drive, little thumb drive, flash drive. I got multiple computers now. I've got ones that have USB Type A, USB Type C, including Macs. I was in a position a couple of weeks ago where I was trying to move data, and the fastest way to do it would have been on a flash drive, but I didn't have the proper fitting for one or the other computers. I didn't want to get out an adapter.
Mm-hmm.
So this one does it for you, does both for you. It's got one end where you push it and it slides out to USB Type-C, and it's got the other end which pushes out to a USB 3.0 Type A.
All right.
Variety of capacities. Okay. I picked up personally the 64 gig. It's less than $20 at Amazon right now. It's a standard flash drive. It's not one of those super fast ones. So the reads are fine. The reads are like 150 megabytes a second. The writes are like 20. So it's not going to be a speed demon. It's for basically kind of a utilitarian, like just I got to move some data around. And it works with Android phones too that have a Type-C port.
You know what I like the most about this is it's not super, super tiny because I lose those.
Yes.
Like the ones that are just the size of a USB-A port.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just lose them.
Yeah, it's got a good size to it, not too big, not too small. And shut up, Josh. And
but how does it feel? How does it feel in your hand?
Oh, it feels fine. It's got that little texture right there.
Is that really just an aesthetic touch?
Fine.
Or does that have
ribbing?
a texture to it?
It's got a texture that
is that ribbed?
That you will feel it if the motion's right in your hand.
Gotcha.
Yep. But it does get pretty hot too. It'll warm up when you're using it
with friction.
Too hard. With friction or the suggestion of friction.
Okay.
It gets things. It gets going a little bit. So that's
what's the lotion in the basket?
If you're looking for a versatile, cheap power supply, or power supply.
Oh, that sounds very versatile.
Yes. Check that out. SanDisk Ultra Dual Drive. So it's less than $20 for 64 gigs, and it goes up to 256 gigs. Next up, we've got something from Jeremy, which is just fantastic.
It's so absolutely and completely horrible. It's caused me to lose all faith in humanity whatsoever. So I had to share it.
Yes.
Big Mouth Billy Bass is back.
Oh dear.
You can order it from Amazon. It will pair with any of your favorite Alexa devices, and not only can you talk to the fish lip syncs Alexa back to you.
How did they screw this up so much? You have to pair it to an Echo.
Yeah,
I know. There's space enough in there to fit one.
This should be the Echo.
Echo Dot plus Billy Bass, $40 seems pretty. Like $40 plus. You need an extra device. Like,
my take is they should have just built it in.
Yeah,
this should just be it.
No, don't get me wrong.
This is all off of somebody that built one.
Yeah,
and they did build it in.
It's pretty impressive that the Billy Bass Corporation could figure this out. Don't get me wrong. But
I mean, no one's buying this "send me down to the river" thing again. What we gonna do?
Yeah, like I want the trigger phrase to just be "Hey Billy Bass," and then it turns towards you.
It does,
right?
Yes, Alan.
And
yes,
right?
Alan.
And then you ask it, order me some toilet paper or whatever, right? And then that
says already you need more.
Alan, I think you should get a colonoscopy.
Yeah. You should eat less fish.
Wah, wah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I might have to order that.
It's $40, so I mean, just be horrible to somebody. It's worth it.
Totally worth it.
Right, next up, we've got. Is this Josh?
I don't know. Is it
with the RAM?
You haven't heard me for a while.
Josh likes to RAM things.
It's been a long day.
I'm sorry.
It's been a long
yes,
podcast.
It has.
You know what? 16 gigs of pretty fast RAM for under $100. We haven't seen that in a while. So even though it's only DDR4 3000, timings aren't great. Voltage is fine. It still works. And it's 16 gig. Just at the $100 price mark. It's nice to see these things go down.
Prices returning to the land of reasonableness.
Yes, and especially with all the hubbaloo. Hullabaloo. Thank you, Sebastian. About price fixing in DRAM, which seems to be like something that happens every 5 years. We're seeing nice drops in prices in RAM and SSDs. So, yeah. Now's about the time. If you really need it, might as well get it.
All right. Yep. It's good to see that $100 mark again. All right. Next up, Alan.
Yeah.
Is this fish compatible?
I I don't think so.
Ah,
It is Z-Wave door lock.
Alan, your home is
compatible.
being broken into.
Yeah.
Should I swim upstream and tell
So
them?
I figured I'd finally get one of these, fancy schmancy alarm systems for the house. Whole like keep your wife safe and all that stuff.
Oh, come on. You're worried about your Teslas and your GPU mining rigs.
Well, the Teslas are not in the house. They can get stolen right out of the driveway. Anyway, so picked up this alarm, the Ring alarm. It's I don't know if it's a Black Friday specific sale that just happens to still be going or not, but if you just look up the Ring alarm on Amazon and then you go the 5-piece kit, which comes with some of the other sensors and like the range extender and the other things. 5-piece kit's like $200. The 8-piece kit is $11 cheaper.
Huh. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Jeff Bezos wants more information about the inside of your house, so he's willing to give you more sensors.
Yeah, I guess. So like it's you save like $80 or something on top of what was already, I think, a sale price. So not bad, and then you end up with 3 contact sensors and 2 motion sensors instead of just, I think, 1 of each or something.
Mhm.
he knows when you are sleeping. He knows when you're awake.
And I mean, part of the thing that sent me down this path was not so much for the alarm, but because I had this Kwikset Kivo door lock that was just a piece of crap. And it was like the first generation one. The Bluetooth support was just poor in it. And it's supposed to just like know your phone is nearby, and then you just touch the bezel of the door lock and it's supposed to just unlock.
Mhm.
It would just take forever to figure out what was going on. And you're just standing there in the rain waiting, it was just a bad experience. So I figured, well, okay, let's switch over to something else that's like more of an IoT style thing. So Z-Wave. So I got led there and I was like, well, what am I going to use to control this Z-Wave thing? Might as well make it an alarm system that also happens to be using the same standard.
Yeah.
Right. Integration so far is not like the best. Like I have to drill down a few layers and menus to control the door lock now, like through the Ring thing. I would imagine that at some point you'll be, answering someone ringing your Ring doorbell and you have the video on the screen and you're talking to whoever. And if you want to let them in, I would assume that they would eventually like let you add a button, to right there, because you're in the same app. It's just that right now it's kind of convoluted to get to the door lock control, where you're already in the app. It's just a little bit more code for them to make it a little more seamless and do other things like make it so. Well, as it is right now, I was surprised about this. If it's a door lock that has a keypad on it, as far as I understand, I think it's compatible with all of the Z-Wave locks. If you have the alarm code set, you can tick an extra box in settings, and it will push that same code to the front door for whoever that person is.
Mm-hmm.
So then if you later remove that person, it will then remove the code from the alarm system and also from the door lock.
Yeah.
All in the same, same motion, basically. So I thought that was kind of cool. But it's not to the point where when you punch in the key, the code on the front door, that it also disarms the alarm, or when you lock the front door on your way out, like that would be nice.
It's amazing that they launched it without that. That seems pretty.
Yeah, it's
common
like
sense.
it's almost
They
there.
have successfully replicated the overcrowded keychain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let you in. It just takes me a second here.
But it's like 95% of the way there, but the only things left, it's like all of the other parts, the moving parts are already like connected. Like the hard things to connect are already there.
Mhm.
Now it's just a matter of a little bit extra code that they need to make it a little bit more of a seamless experience. But that's just a firmware update thing.
Okay.
Right. So
But we don't live very far from each other, so I will just wait for the phone call in the middle of the night that your alarm has crashed and you can't get into the house.
okay. Yeah.
All I want is Billy Bass sitting on top of my doorstep that says, "Speak, friend, and enter."
Nice. Well, okay. Last up here, we've got a interesting mod here, and this is from Clint at LGR. Or no, I'm sorry, Sebastian. Yes.
Well, yeah, don't let the paltry selection of games back here behind me fool you.
That's
Truly
classics there, like
paltry
Tiger Woods
of
99.
99 was, I think,
games.
the first computer game I ever bought. It
Nice.
was that and then X-Wing were my first two.
X-Wing.
Got into the
Good
game very
choice.
late.
Yeah,
obviously.
because
Do,
X-Wing.
do you want to know my first game that I bought?
There we go.
More than
Leisure Suit
anything,
Larry?
Josh.
Parcheesi.
Ancient Art of War.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Josh, it doesn't
That
count
was
because
1986.
it doesn't count because you're not showing us the disc.
Yeah.
Dude, I
Yeah,
lost
where's
it.
the disc?
Gone.
You didn't rebuy the stuff that you lost years ago like I did.
Disc or it didn't
That's what
happen.
eBay is for. It's about reclaiming your childhood by buying all the things that you remember.
Yeah. I bought
Or something.
a Donkey Kong Game & Watch on eBay because I had one when I was growing up.
Nice. There you go. It's a real good investment.
So typically arcane sort of pick from me. This is a GitHub link. It's a project for perfect pixels with DOSBox. And if you're like me and you are endlessly annoyed by soft scaling or just downright incorrect scaling when it comes to square pixels versus squashed pixels as you're seeing on the screen. if you watch the
Jazz
video.
Jackrabbit.
Yep.
And
I've
by
got it. I've
default,
got it.
there are
I've got
some
that
wonky things
on my
being
disc.
done.
Yeah,
Yes,
Jazz
it's
will
on
be
there.
on that.
But if you don't want
Jazz
to run,
Jackrabbit.
if you don't want
Sorry.
to run it on like an old computer, and you actually want it to look decent on an LCD screen, I had seen something about this a while back. I finally actually installed and tried it out, and I was like on the initial DOSBox screen with the command prompt and just staring at the screen like, this is so sharp. Like the pixels, just the text for me to enter things at the C prompt looked phenomenal compared to how they normally look. Really soft and kind of blurry in full screen. It looked fantastic. Games look great. It's just, obviously it's free. I just downloaded like from the Windows downloads page, the 0.04 pixel perfect build. But
So this will make Zork look good?
What's that?
This will make Zork look good?
Not sure about that.
I mean,
Nice crisp text.
they really should just this type of thing, this type of fork, they should really just absorb back into
Well, there are no places that distribute DOSBox builds with various add-ons already.
Yeah, like the
integrated.
SVN stuff that's out there. And I initially read this and like, oh, what are they actually doing with the settings? And tried changing the settings in my, like the latest version of DOSBox is like 0.74-2. And it didn't work.
Right.
And so I just downloaded it and ran this. Like it was like a self-contained folder. I didn't have to install anything and just boom, there it is. And it's doing perfect like integer scaling without any softness being introduced and without altering the shape of the pixels.
Which is how any retro thing should look.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Mhm.
You know, unless
Like
you're
this
trying
would
to
make games look good on a 65-inch TV. It looks fantastic. I was trying it on my 25-inch, like 2560 by 1440 monitor.
Yeah.
And I have never had an old DOS game look good on that in full screen, and it looked perfect.
Wow. That's awesome. That's something to check out for sure. All right. So yeah, and if you don't know what DOSBox is, you gotta go check that out.
If you
like
don't know what
games.
DOSBox is, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's free and it allows you to.
it's the thing that Josh would have to use to play all those games on his CD that he keeps waving around.
Oh,
Yeah.
of those games.
It allows you to run DOS era games and Windows 3.1 era in some cases in modern Windows. So check it out and check this out too. That is pretty good. All
But I'm
right.
going to have to borrow your sound card to play Wing Commander 2,
Mm-hmm.
Sebastian. 'Cause it won't sound right without that old one you got.
Right. You need that OPL2 chip.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
It
well,
has a warmth to it that other MIDI devices didn't have.
It has that added noise from the 3.5 millimeter output. You just don't get from modern sound cards
Mhm.
with their 100 decibel signal to noise ratio.
You know,
60 was good enough.
back when you can hear the ISA bus
Yeah.
Yes.
over
And
the
don't
sound
even
card.
think about using like a modern input device anywhere near it. I'm sure that would not sound very good. Like the polling sound.
all
Those
right.
2G phone sounds.
First iPhone, the most poorly shielded
Art,
phone
I
ever
hear a modem.
designed.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get out of here, folks. It's been we're way over time. We're
2.5 hours.
we
Yeah.
are providing listener value
We're trying.
Yes, your value per.
You didn't bring a party popper to get us halfway through.
I know. I was gonna bring a gas can and a lighter and set somebody on fire, but I thought that might be taking it too far. I mean, I was only gonna set you on fire a little bit.
It's just because it's Alan. If it was Ken, you already would have done it.
I know.
True.
Yeah.
Next time, folks, look forward to that. We'll bring fire extinguishers. But you can find us at PCPer.com. Get all of our shows at PCPer.com/podcast. Contact us at Twitter.com/PCPer. And one last thing I wanted to note, too, we talked about the Patreon at the beginning of the show. We were talking here, the Patreon is something where, we haven't done as much as a lot of creators who you might be supporting on Patreon have done. So we want to know, looking into 2019, what can we do to offer you more value for current subscribers as well as those who would consider subscribing if they got something more. So send us a tweet or drop us an email. Let us know what we can do. What kind of stuff do you want to see us offer through that program? Because we do recognize that we haven't given you the value we should have, and we want to do that some more going into the next year. So with that, thanks everybody, and have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Oh, thank the Lord.
I presume we're not doing an after show.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Too late.
Too much. Too
Anybody who
much.
tuned in this long got the after show. Basically, the last hour of the podcast.
Yeah, you got your after show inside the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.